The transcript of Dr. Malanga's lecture updates on alien interferences part 1. So, let's see if we can start our today's chat, offering, at the same time, an overall view of the present situation. So, first of all, I see here some familiar faces, but I also notice persons I am not acquainted with, so I don't know which is the level of awareness regarding the problem we are dealing with today. Thus, I will make a brief presentation. Me, alas, I deal with the issues regarding alien interferences. The alien interferences, what are these? They are. It's let's say, a phenomenology which depends, not on us, since we are the passive part of this, but on them, I mean the aliens. The aliens? What do aliens have to do here? Sadly, we have this thing on our nerves. Nobody's talking about this. People don't have much desire to tackle an issue like this one, because it's a difficult issue. Technically speaking, the church has heavy rules on coping with a thing like that. I must say that the politicians, I don't know if you know, but 12 parliamentary questions have been submitted to the House chamber regarding the UFOs issue without any kind of final outcome. In addition, the secret services are working on it. But the truth never comes out. Furthermore, I am investigating this for almost 40 years now, and for the last 20 years, I am dealing with a particular aspect of the matter, and that is alien interferences. I mean, people who come to talk to me usually are people who believe they have had something to do with these characters who come from another place. The studies we have done bring us studies that in Italy they are only 20 years old, so not much is known on this phenomenology. Bear in mind that we took notice of the UFO phenomenon in 1945, first time in the world. Before, no one had noticed it. So, it's something new, and like all new things, people do not really understand what is going on. For this reason, the Americans started investigating this phenomenon, but we went much deeper. After a while we, too, started investigating this matter. We wrote some things, some books. We did some things so that people could know what the problem was about. And we are still doing it today. Bear in mind that the results we have achieved are striking results, because now we know how to meddle with it. That's all. We know what this phenomenon is, how it works, etc., etc. Then, once in a while, the association that supports me or stands me, which may also be organizes, at least once a month, a brainstorming session, which is a meeting like this one where we define the present situation regarding all things we found out during the last 30 days, to tell everyone what the state of the art is. It is not similar to other situations, other centers. In Italy there are the Centers for UFO Studies that hold a meeting once a year, where there are 3 members and you never have it clear what to talk about. Here we try to say everything to everybody. Even if what we have to say can actually be very complicated, difficult to digest, because we are talking about issues that, usually, are not easily accepted by the conventional science. You all know the official standpoint. The Italian official is Piero Angela, come on, I mean. So that what he says, the television says in television, is an important thing because it's a representation of the reality of the map, that is. What you see. The reality is different, we all know it, so different information is needed. The methods we made use of to study the phenomenology are, obviously, cutting-edge methodologies and, however, have not been invented by the undersigned, but they are elaborations of techniques already in use, NLP, regressive hypnosis, all techniques that tend to look into people's heads and try to draw out the memories they believe they no longer have. Moral of the story, over the last 20 years, what came out, we have written it all over, especially on the internet, is the depiction of a situation that is not in our favor. The good alien, that cares so much about us, of the years 65-70, in the American New Age, does not exist. But the way we see things instead, demonstrates that the alien, and there are several types that come on this planet, what they really want is to exploit the human being for its characteristics, its potential and in doing so, however, they never ask for a permission. This alone could be a problem. Then there's another problem. Every time we do our investigations, with our methods, we find out that next to the alien on duty, who came to break the nerves of our abductee is an ugly term which derives from abduction. Taken against one's will if you want. Well, every time we go to search for an explanation, to remember, to make the subject gain back memories, here appears, always, during the regressive hypnosis, for example these damn military appear, that is, human beings just like us, wearing uniform, who say and do things next to the alien. It is obvious that we believed that the alien and the military were in agreement with each other. And here even more. No. This thing is no good. No, not good. Not good. So, I am telling it as if it was a joke, but bear in mind that there are some numbers. The numbers are the numbers of our statistics. During the past 20 years, especially the last 15, well, we saw a number of people, maybe 1,000, 1,500. An unspecified number, greater than 1,000, with different levels of acquisition of information, so there's who's treated with deep hypnosis, who's treated with neuro-linguistic programming techniques, some of them with other methodologies, and they give us their testimonies. Hundreds and hundreds of testimonies that, in many ways, are the equal and overlapping. The index of credibility of the phenomenology increases because these people, which do not know each other, cannot have invented the same dream, the same thing in every single detail. Unless I influence them. To avoid this we have worked in 3 different groups, that means with 3 persons doing the hypnosis, different kind hypnosis, and even under this condition we have obtained the same results. These are the Min 9.00, the top of the issue. So to say, we're not talking about the sex of angels or, as someone would say, we are not combing the dolls here, in the very sense of the word, there's a problem to solve here and we try to solve it with the means that the nowadays official science gives us. We have these means so we have to use them. Then, I made my slip of paper. Because, in this kind of meetings, the first thing you need to do is to give indications of where we're heading to, that is, what are the updates at the very present time. Especially when it comes to information. So, first I am telling that I committed myself during this time to do some things. That served to divulgate, from part 02 this information, part 2 spreading this information. Because people need to know. You know some things, the television doesn't tell you these things, or it tells you about them in a bad way, non-problem, I tell you about them. Then you choose if you want to believe in me or in the television. This is your choice. But, I give you the opportunity to look at things in a different way. Maybe I am the one who is right. 022, and so I need to do some things so that the information is accessible. I don't have the television as a media, also because I have been refusing to appear on television for quite a few years. I don't want to anymore, except in very rare cases for technical issues, otherwise I don't go on television. Every month, approximately every couple of months, a certain XYZ network calls me and they ask me, why don't you participate, and I answer them, no, because television is not, at present, a tool which is useful to inform. At the most television is something useful to create a show. I cannot go anywhere and talk for 15 minutes about this problem, and then they broadcast the big wheel of the big fortune. You see? It can't be done like this, otherwise it seems that we are talking about things which are not important. But they are. So that is not the right place. So we do different things. 122 We develop the communication in the internet in a big way, and so we try to maintain the communication on the internet. It took 10 years to destroy the bad communications made by the Centro Ufologico Nazionale on the internet, or by the Centro Italiano Studi Ufologici on the internet. Gone. Today, in a little while, nobody knows that there is a Centro Ufologico Nazionale or CISU from Turin. 146 Today, if you write abduction you get 45 pages of mine. This means that I did it on purpose. I found the way to eliminate other people's communication. I had to do it. In a total democratic way. Through the internet. There you can see who has more say on this matter, because she is the one who gives more information. After you visit the Centro Ufologico Nazionale's website 3, 4 or 5 times, and you see that in 10 years they didn't write anything new, then you look for a different source. That's it. Nothing weird about it. 229. Then what are we doing? We are doing the following things: a movie, which is a fiction, and this fiction will be inexpensive, that is €1,400,000, in which there's an abducted woman, there's a man who uses hypnosis, and who is all right, a university teacher, in which certain things happen, which involve Freemasonry, in which there's the secret services, the church, in which there's the reconstruction of the sky, and it is a rough reconstruction of how actually is the alien that we see, who does the things that the alien that we know does. In other words, it is a way to talk and to reach a share of people with this subliminal information, a share of people that doesn't even know us anyway. All the things that we do, we don't ask anything for them. We don't ask, not even for a buck, never. 338. Then we completed a 4 hours DVD, which is practically the video version of Alien Cicatrix for Aliens and Demons, where there are some new things, meaning some testimonies from 4 of our abductees, people that say what happened before, during, and after. And how they were able to free themselves from their problem. Healing, in inverted commas. Why in inverted commas? Because the abductee is not a sick person. She is somebody who has an issue that she needs to solve. So, the abductees cannot be healed, as the American psychiatrists say. You cannot heal a sick person because they won't ever heal their sickness. They are not sick, so what is there to heal? You can make them understand, instead, that there are different things and that they can solve them with some techniques that we made available. For 39 probably, we'll have a new edition for Alien and Demons for Christmas, probably, changing publishing house. There won't be the old publishing house, which is Chiara Luna, but there will be a new one. In Turin, a publishing house specialized in DVD making, created a set of 5 science fiction movies in a cased edition. They came to interview me, and they actually used a video interview from one of our Stargates meeting to make the 6th DVD. What does this mean? It means something good, because we are able, somehow and also in this area, to spread information. Completely different channels. This is what I needed to tell you. 535 also because, in May I am going to stop. What does this mean? It means that there's 2 options. For 6 months, I disappear from the face of the earth. Meaning that, I'll keep on working on the websites, we'll write articles, we keep on researching, but I must stop at least for 99%, but if there'll be complex cases for us to solve, we solve them, through regressive hypnosis. And there's a basic reason for this. Actually there are 2, 619. The first one, it is time that everybody master the techniques that we put at disposal and that they get out of trouble on their own. This is essential. We also prepared a certain number of people that are able to do those things that I used to be the only one doing. And this is something that, if not, we can't advance. Then, I'll tell you the figures for the people that are available now. 650 then, since everybody needs to know their own limits. I believe I know my limits, and if I keep on going on like this a little bit more, you're gonna have to bring me some goodies while I'll be in a mental hospital. So, I'd like to avoid this, and for at least 6 months I'd like to have a moment's rest. After these 6 months, we'll see what happens. Here, this is the working hypothesis, so I am working on this activities. That's it. 717. This is the technical information that one gives at first, isn't it? When people meet during an association's gathering and it's time to talk about things. Keep in mind that, something that maybe you've never thought about, that we have the largest data bank in the world on the abduction issue. The largest data bank in the world. That is, we, poor rascals from the Stargate group, by the year's end, only with the UFO Machine Data Bank, that is one of the two websites, we are able to study in detail and very well from a statistical point of view. To study the quality and the quantity of the answers from thousands of people who sent us their self-assessment tests, and then to evaluate them in a way that is better than 10 exit pools, because we have the numbers and statistics, with the numbers, is an exact science. 817 in Italy, we are the only ones in the world. Because one always thinks about the Americans. When the news says, the Americans discovered something interesting. And they say an incredible bullshit. I don't know if you remember, as an example, that the Americans working at Pampers at a certain point had found out that male babies piss in a different way compared to female babies. After 2,000 years. Here. This is the way in which the news gives us information, so when the Americans find out something, the great research, let's just start to laugh right away, because instead this time the research is serious, and we performed it, in Italy. 90 for not only this, but we must highlight another side of the matter. We are the only ones in the world who created, after studying the abduction phenomena, even if one could criticize this study lo studio for better or worse, we are the only ones that created a system to get out if it. In the whole world. The only ones. That's it. Because at times, one always thinks about the other ones, but instead us, poor thing, we've been able to do this just because we were able to work on hundreds of people. And now they've become thousands. Every month we receive 300 self-assessment tests. And so, how is it possible to answer to 300 self-assessment tests every month? Starting from Centistoria, which is the second website that we have, UFO Machine and Part 313, those ones that come directly to my mail. On average, 300 steadily. Obviously you need to answer them. I get 1,500 emails weekly, that means 80,000 yearly. What am I supposed to do? Go to Brazil? Escape? I will escape when they don't show Crime Watch anymore, so they cannot find me anymore. Because this is terrible, you can't do it anymore. 2-3 Analyzing the self-assessment tests is complicated, not because it is hard to do it. There are 68 questions that we have edited. The TAV, for who may not know, is a test which allows to understand if you are in or out of the phenomenon. It is a test based on approximately 68 questions. It is superestimated, by now it is a good test, we've understood it works. 3-3 The chance that it is wrong, I believe it is about 2%, always positively, meaning, I say you are out of the problem, and actually you are in. I make a mistake only in this way. Because the person who fills in the TAV at times has a hidden censor. This forces them to answer wrongly to the questions. It makes them say no, when instead they should say yes. And because of this I make a blunder. For 3 Because of this we decided, some years ago, that the Italians who have this problem were 1%. Too little, there's more. I don't know how much more, but there's more. We can only see the hardcore, meaning those for whom the test is really clear, and you can clearly see the issue. 5-3 The TAV also allows us to do something else very precisely. At times I get to be in a fit of depression and I say I made up everything, nothing is true about this. It's just madness. Because really, this is true madness. Then I go home at night, and the day after I go back to work, I print again 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 TAV, I read them. Oh my God, boys. It just says what I thought. That is, it means that it is just like that. That is the phenomenon. There's nothing to do. It's useless to hide one's head in the sand like an ostrich. 6-3 Beside the fact that the phenomenon is that one, and that all I could highlight, I wrote it in many works that anybody can find on the internet, and which are free. Imagine that. Everything is free, always free. Everything free. Once in a while somebody comes and says, "Do you do hypnosis?" "Yes, we do hypnosis." "And how much is that?" "It's free." "What do you mean free?" They look at you as if they wanted to say, "Then you are stupid." I'd be the richest man in Europe. When there is only one person all over Europe who does this kind of work. Take it or leave it. Oh, that was just to give some information. 7.3 Let's talk about the new things that are coming up. The abduction phenomenon is a one which is clear to us for 85%, 90%. There's a 10% left to refine, but for very important matters. Do not think that 10% is little, no, it is important stuff. So it is necessary to understand how it works. I wanted to make the situation clear for you about what the latest data are, which are the most important, the most interesting. 8.3 We started to study the alien phenomenon, thinking that the aliens were our reference point. That's where we wanted to get. The target, the goal was that one over there. We realized after a while, after the first 2 years, that the issue needed to be completely altered. Because behind the alien there's the one who is in front of us, that is the man. 9.3 We could not study the alien if we did not understand what a man is. This approach led us inevitably to studying something we'd never thought about. What the hell the alien wanted from us. 10.3 At the beginning we thought that he wanted only to use our women and our men, because by hypnotizing men we were getting to this information. Between 14 and 16 years old, they got some sperm with a weird device which was connected to the ceiling and moved downwards. Something like a milking machine, and the poor guy was going to be deranged for the rest of his life by this operation, because he doesn't consciously remember it anymore, but on a subconscious level he perfectly remembers what happened, and so he has enormous issues in managing his relationships with the opposite sex. 11.3 For women, it's even more invasive, because women remember when the egg was inoculated from the outside in the female genitals, and its expulsion approximately after 3 months after a second abduction. 12.3 All the women that we hypnotized and that were in the phenomenon described this in the slightest detail, all of them, in the slightest detail. The different type of alien, cause depending on this they perform a different operation. Every time that we deal with the grasshopper alien, that's how we call it because it is something like a big insect, 6 feet 7 inches tall and with a big head, and that looks a little bit like a mantis. 13.3 It's a mantis who understands when you talk with it. It talks to you in your head. And this sort of big insect, every time that it draws out its little insect, it performs a cesarean section or something which is very similar to it, so that we have people with these cesarean sections, even if they are very thin, and they do not remember that they gave birth to a child. 14.3 And there's also women who go to the gynecologist who tells them that they had 3 pregnancies, but they never realized that. And they say they only dreamt about it. But then, maybe, it was not just a dream. Here, at the beginning we thought that it was a biological issue. 15.3 The alien comes, it uses you because it has an old, weak DNA, etc. We thought it was something like that, because they are not able to procreate, and so they had an issue about their reproduction. If only it were something like that. We were still gonna get pissed, but we could even accept it. Poor alien, I am going to help you. But at least tell me that, no? You need people to be in agreement, you need to ask for permission. Well, no. There was more behind this. 16.3 And when we found out what it was, the core of the problem came out, and it explains everything. It is the angle of the story which opens all the doors. The alien not only uses mankind in many other different ways, like this one which regards reproduction, but it uses mankind because it looks for something that mankind doesn't know it has. It's a strong source of energy, powerful, which the alien doesn't have, while humans do. 17.3 A source of energy which comes out during the regressive hypnosis and which, at the beginning, we totally didn't understand what it was. After that happens once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and every time with different people, we had to ask ourselves, there's something wrong here. 18.3 So, you hypnotize somebody, and with the right technique the person is in deep trance, and the part that comes out is something that identifies itself as a different consciousness which says to you, I don't have a body, I've always existed, I don't know what time is, we don't have a name, it talks in the plural. 19.3 We named this thing, and we could have also named it John, we named it soul. And the soul part can be described as a series of tensors and vectors, within space, time, energy and consciousness. That means it is something that can be geometrically defined. 23 This thing doesn't have the time axis, and, since it doesn't have it, when you ask it what day is today, it says, in hypnosis, but what does it mean? What are you asking me? I don't know what it is. Everybody, 100, 200, 300, 400 people, they all answer in the same way. 21.3 This soul part is the one that you can see during the regressive hypnosis, and you can see that it is what the alien wants, which it is able to capture in some way with a series of machines, and this thing is taken out and it is inserted in one alien, the alien comes to life again, this thing gets to be taken out again and inserted in the original container. Part 4, and you find out that the target, the alien's goal, is to be able to find a way, one day, to get the soul's part and not having to put it back again in the original container anymore, but being able instead to keep it somehow linked to what is the alien's container. In other words, the alien doesn't want to die. This looked like a comic to us, because it was really unbelievable, but the issue is that between beliefs and the reality, there's no relationship. There's never been any relationship. Just because something is credible, then it follows that it is true? If it was so, then we should have had something that somebody said a couple of years ago, when he promised 1,500,000 new jobs. Have you seen them? Still, it seemed real at that time. But it was not real. Weird. This is an example that strangely comes to my mind at this moment. Yes, because this is the political time that makes me think about this. So, this is an important issue. How can I talk about this kind of working hypothesis, about this new findings, to people? You know, dear sirs, we have something we didn't even know we had, that it is called a soul, and that is immortal. Because somebody could say, but excuse me, we die. So how in the hell can it be immortal? We die. So, you get this thing, you put it in regressive hypnosis, you talk with the soul part, you have all this series of conversations. With the soul part, which has its own consciousness, and it says it came in this universe because in this universe there are the containers and it enters these containers and it experiences. What kind of experience does it want to have in the end? It is not easy to talk to the soul part because the soul part talks through archetypes. The archetype creates the symbol produces the image creates the phoneme, so it is very hard to talk through archetypes because the soul part doesn't understand you, just like I do not understand the soul part, at times, when I try to understand something through the mind of the person under hypnosis, which is the translator for this communication. It is not simple, so everything that the soul part says must be re-examined. Let's give a simple example. The case of a person X, I put him or under hypnosis, you draw out the alien that is within him or, somehow, which uses his or head to survive, which is inside, and which not only comes and gets you with a UFO, but which is within you and parasitize you somehow, but you can take it out. The schizophrenic would say, there would be a different hypothesis, a multi-personality psychopathic person. But that's not the case, because everybody would have Napoleon's personality. Meaning, it's not that one of them believes to be Napoleon and another Genghis Khan. Here 400 people, all of them, believes to be Napoleon, just over 7 feet tall and with a blue tracksuit, with 5 fingers, an identical skull, eyes with a vertical pupil, copper hair, etc., etc. Do they all look the same? Weird. Also, because you can see it considering the way one writes, the behavioral analysis of the person, if one is schizophrenic or not. A psychiatrist cannot do it, but I can. You could say, but why? Who are you? It's just that I studied the way to do it. It's not because a psychiatrist cannot do it, he could do it, but he doesn't even take that into consideration, the idea that the human being has a brain and that the brain and the mind are two completely different things. The brain, it's a piece of meat. The mind, it's something which has consciousness and it makes you do things. This is the result, and it's also what the transpersonal psychology says now. We are in front of this entity, the soul part, which does some things. The liberation process that the abductee follows is to balance again the soul part. You get in contact with the soul part, you talk with it and say, but excuse me, you get the shaft in this way by this alien which is an idiot. But do you know who it is? No, how come you don't know? It was just last Friday. Oh yes, it gets my container, but why should I care? What do you mean you don't care? How come you don't care? That's your container. Aha, but I leave. The soul part doesn't care at all about its container, if you don't make it understand. And this is something incredible because you can understand who the abductee is. They are jinxed. Meaning, the abductee is not somebody who is chosen, but he is a jinx. Meaning, it's somebody who has found him herself in a particular situation in which her soul part is playing that put the flowers in your gun game. So, do you understand what's going on? Your container is you, it's the one that allows you to walk around in this universe and to experience what you need to experience. Without it, you cannot do anything. The soul part escapes, but it doesn't make it to escape. It doesn't realize how the alien is set up, it doesn't realize what the alien wants, and that the alien takes it, it puts it in his machine and it takes energy away from it. What kind of experience you realize that the soul part wants to have? Because you get it, you put it under hypnosis and you ask the soul part why it has come here. We came here to play, we came here to experience, but what's the experience? You shouldn't make the error to think that it was about the experience of life, it doesn't have anything to do with this. The soul wants to have only one experience, the death experience. What does it mean? Simple. The soul part doesn't have the axis for time and so it is immortal. Within the soul part, there's a very, very strong consciousness axis, or consciousness is what the Catholics call God. Consciousness, that has been existing always. Consciousness, which is eternal. The only thing that consciousness must understand, and that cannot understand, the poor thing, it's what happens when it dies. Meaning termination. So, through the soul part which gets to be introduced within our containers, what happens is that the soul part first lives a life, then it dies. Why? Because death wouldn't mean anything otherwise. What do you think death could mean if there wasn't a life before which colors it with a vital experience? There's people who want to die, people who don't want to die, people who die by shooting at themselves, people who kill somebody else, people who hit your foot with a hammer. There are a lot of ways to die, and all of these billions and billions and billions of ways must all be seen by consciousness, because it has to acquire a consciousness about death, but in order to have this, you must have lived first. The soul takes a container, puts itself inside of it, has a life journey, which will create its idea of life and then its idea of death, and then it dies and experiences it, and afterwards it goes somewhere else to do other things. It says, then we go and play in there. That's it. Within all of this tremendous preface I did, there are some interesting things. Interesting things that clearly if Piero Angela was to see them, he wouldn't get out of his house for 6 months. But, I am telling you, as an example, that these phenomena that we didn't know at all, at the beginning, which are linked to NDE, near-death experience, some of our abductees died, but they didn't die. And how have we realized that? by having them tell us some parts of their lives. You need to know that an abductee cannot die. Meaning, she can, obviously, but the alien doesn't want that the abductee dies because she is like a cow, to be milked, very important. You cannot let an abductee die, you'd better do something about it. You have to bear in mind that the abductee is somebody who has, oftentimes strong ideas, during his/her lifetime, about repress him/herself and his/her life, that is to commit suicide. Those few times that she tries to do it, it will never work. Let's see some examples so you understand what happens. A girl from Colliery. These are all people that were able to solve the problem or that are working on solving it. I do with her 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hypnosis sessions, then she solved the problem, but when we were there and we were studying this thing which she was telling me, and we were having our preliminary talk, she tells me this experience of hers, when she decided to commit suicide. She went downstairs at her place, she lived upstairs, where there's the shop, which it is a laundromat, it is Sunday morning, she locks herself up with the excuse that she needs to put things in order, and instead, she starts the chlorine machine, she tries to get a small bottle of Tabor, she gets naked and she goes under the chlorine machine because it should have burned her body, and she says, I do it calmly, in a clear-headed way, but if I was to ask myself why I was doing it, I don't. Remember, even this is interesting. She starts this operation. And what happens is that. Part 5 in Milan, this happens on an early Sunday morning. A friend of this girl, in Milan, a friend of this girl sees the Madonna appearing in his bedroom. And you say, good. The Madonna says to this guy, call this woman's brother because she's killing herself. This guy, while the Madonna is in his room, gets the phone and calls her brother. This is crazy. And her brother says, come on, the Madonna, are you joking? Are we getting crazy? No, she keeps on insisting and the guy cannot do it anymore and goes, okay, now I am going to check. Do not worry. 039 he goes downstairs, raised the shutter, and the woman was getting ready and says, no, don't worry, I am only putting things straight. What, killing myself? I can't even think about it. Okay, thanks. Then your friend is dumb. He lowers the shutter, goes back upstairs. And the woman starts to organize again everything for her suicide. 059 in Milan, after approximately half an hour, the Madonna appears again in this guy's room. And the Madonna says to him, look, and says again the same story. This guy, out of his mind, calls again and again and again until 5 p.m., until her brother goes downstairs and finds that she did try to kill herself. 1:26 they take her, bring her to the hospital, and save her through a gastric lavage. But she told me something is wrong, because I killed myself, I did, but there's something wrong. First my body should have been all completely destroyed by the chlorine and instead I had only a little spot here, behind my thigh, then I undressed myself. How come I found myself all dressed and with my scarf on my neck? Something doesn't make sense. 1:59 so, we get this person, hypnotize her, and we make her remember the moment in which she wants to kill herself. And in that moment the Madonna appears also to her, with some more Madonnas, which take her and with some weird military people. They take her inside a mountain which opens and there she gets in through an elevator, goes 5 floors downstairs and there they operate on her. They start to stick some pieces of skin everywhere and they use a strange lavage. Blood. Something was going in through the left arm and going out through the right arm. And then they put her back there. When she goes to the hospital, the doctor will say that her blood looked like distilled water. Distilled water. Something made sure that you cannot die because you are a cow to milk. A good cow to milk. Because you have lots of energy. 310 or, what about that guy from Piaggio? This guy goes back home on Friday evening and he decides to kill himself. He locks himself in the house, his parents were not there. And I say from Piaggio because he used to be a worker for Piaggio. He built scooters. And he gets the usual little bottle of lorazepam, and we are doing a good commercial for lorazepam. He finds himself in the hospital. In the hospital with the usual problem. Gastric lavage. But the blood test doesn't show any results. I don't understand why, blah blah. 350 without saying anything to him, I get him, I hypnotize him, because we were trying to understand this, and at that time we were just at the first stages, so we hadn't totally understood what was happening, and without saying to him what I was going to make him remember, I put him in the same conditions in order for him to remember his own suicide. And the story that he tells was completely different. For 10 he goes inside his house, takes this little bottle of lorazepam, for no reason. Why? No idea, I don't know. He drinks this stuff, he eats it, and, at a certain point I ask him, for 21 who was with you, and he says, under hypnosis, there's the tall one. The tall one? How tall is the tall one? Phew, he is at least 7 feet 2 inches. Does he make it through the door? No, he doesn't. How is he dressed? In blue, and his suit is all tight. And he has orange hair and his eyes have a vertical pupils. And what is he doing there? Ah, where he came out from. Is he saying anything to you? Yes. He speaks in my head. And what does he says? What did you do? Idiot. 457, and what do you say to him? Eh? Nothing. And what does he say? And he says, call your friend, and tell him to come here right away. Call your friend. And what do you do? I call my friend, that is the one who will then call the ambulance. Call your friend. And then what does he do? And then he picks me up in his arms, arm in arm, and he makes me walk back and forth, and he tells me, don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. Because he needs to try to get rid of the toxins. 532, and who opened the door? Who opened the gate downstairs? Because they were closed from the inside, he was going to find them open. And the ambulance could enter and bring him to the hospital. This is just an example. 547, or, in the disco. A guy, in the disco. He goes to the disco, and his friends, just to tease him, in inverted commas, give him a drink with some crack. He goes immediately into coma, and will stay like that, without a beating heart, for 15 minutes. Meaning he is dead. 616, after 15 minutes he wakes up, a little bit dopey, and he says, do you know that I know what happened to me? Because I was there, dead, but I wasn't dead. I was looking at all that people. Instead, all of a sudden, I came out of my body and I was looking from above what was happening. And there was my friend who went, at a certain point, in his car, outside of the disco, to get something from the dashboard, which was a syringe. He came back and he also gave me this injection. 644, the day after he met his friend and said to him, but did you do this, that and this other thing? And his friend says, me? You? How do you know? Actually, I didn't say this to anybody. 15 people around this man who was for 15 minutes without his heart beating. This guy lives again. And at a certain point, his friends, a little bit dopey after the disco, see a weird shining shape which comes out of this wretch. This shining shape. That's him. 711, and this guy, under hypnosis, when he describes what happened, he sees that there are some tall beings, white-haired and with 6 fingers, which take him and bring him in their flying machine, and they put back in order, partially, the soul component which had left the body, and they force it again inside the container. But this is not enough, because after a while, his friends see again this shining thing which goes back in the body, and they say, here we are all drugged, which it was. Likely to be true. He wakes up after 15 minutes without his heart beating, and he is alive. 754, but this is not the end, because, After that, when he is dopey, he sits on an armchair, and he waits until the end of the night. But this is not the end, because at a certain point he feels the need to go out. Out of the disco there's a beach. And, at a certain point, time stops and some people come out, this time tall and red-haired, dressed in light blue, with 5 fingers and vertical pupils, which take him with them. They bring him up, they lay him on a little bed, and they give him the usual blood transfusion, saying, "Don't let them fool you anymore. Otherwise, it's gonna be a mess." Then they kick him in the ass and he finds himself sleeping on a deck chair on the beach. 8:37 his friends, at 6 a.m., go looking for him and they find him there. Because they thought he is dead, maybe he jumped in a ditch somewhere, but actually he is pretty good. But he doesn't remember all of the things that happened, which he will remember instead under hypnosis. Meaning he remembers everything. He remembers also what his friends did without telling him. And he is able to, and his friends afterwards, strangely confirm this because they will think of him, from that day on, with a suspicion. There you go. 9-10 Or, at a certain point, a certain person I know that this woman, during the preliminary talks we usually have, tells me a part of her life and she tells me about an accident, about a dream, about an accident. No, actually it is a real accident that she had. She was riding a motorbike, yes, a motorbike, in a certain area, and she got squashed by a truck. And she only remembers that a tall blonde man was keeping up her head. Part 6 Midnight in a certain way. She doesn't remember anything else. She dies. She sees all of that experience from above. They had already taken away her dead body. They already had drawn on the floor the shape of the body. The shape of a human body. But after a few hours she's alive again, while in the hospital. Wow. Just like that. Her body needs to be rebuilt, she's crippled, but she's alive again. And she doesn't remember anything. This is what happened during a hypnosis session. For a trivial reason, this story came out. We were not trying to find out about this story. It just came out on its own. This person had already done only one hypnotic session, and this was just the second one, and it was also the last one. Because now we are trying to solve the issue just with 2 sessions. In most cases we make it, and I even hope, we'll be able to obtain this result with only 1 hypnotic session. And now, and I will tell you about this later, we are working on doing this without any hypnosis, and this would be the best thing. 114 There we are, she is in a deep hypnotic state, a woman with great paranormal faculties. Remarkable. Just like all of our abductees that, as a matter of fact, even if they don't realize it, when you create the right conditions, they are able to do amazing things. And, I was talking to this soul component. And I asked this soul component, I asked her about the physical body container. You need to know, and I am making a very short digression now, that the abductee, when he is abducted by the aliens, they automatically build in certain machines some of copies of him. These copies are used to do some important things, the aliens need them. 202 So I am trying to ask the soul component, which is, somehow, this impartial conscience, about her physical body's containers. And there she starts a different subject, cause the soul component at times gets the wrong end of the stick, and she tells me about something different, about her physical body container, but the other one. The one that is dead. And I say, what do you mean dead? What about this physical body container? What happened? What's happening? And the soul component tells this story. 233 Truck squished body. The soul component may at times just talk like a little girl, meaning she doesn't really use a good language. So, verbs, things. She somehow makes them up, squished body. Well, I see, squished body. And then, what happens? Then, technology, they come, they take you. They take you and put dead head. And then? They put disk. She talks to you like that, they put disk with information of copy. A live copy, they pull out copy, copy's brain put into original. And spirit? Spirit dead. And, so even the soul component is dead. No, soul component was there watching. Then, once the whole body is built, and it is new once again, the soul component goes back in. And the person lives again. I mean, she comes to life again. 335. And so we were able to understand why this person had this being inside, that was giving her information. I will tell you how the aliens look like, don't worry, I am your guiding spirit, and that was the spirit, not hers, but the alien spirit, that was within what we call the alien active memory, meaning the part of the brain that is driven by the alien, and that, since it is not the original spirit anymore, instead of the original spirit, they put in the alien spirit, which then took possession also for the original spirit's part. For 12 so, we were dealing with a body which had been put back together, assembled again, with the memory, because this woman doesn't have her memory anymore, but she has her copy's memory, the backup, and in fact, there are part of her life that she just doesn't remember at all. 0 years of her life gone. A reprogrammed memory. For 39 the soul component went back in the original physical body container, and she wants to highlight it, no. The original physical body container. The soul component just can't get in a copy of the physical body container, she cannot resist being there, it doesn't work, it is not made for her, it doesn't work, how can I say it? And a spirit. That's where the little voice was coming from, and it was acting like a super parties, and it used to say to the woman, who had paranormal powers, I am your guiding spirit, and now I tell you how things are supposed to be done, it was the alien spirit. 510 so, when the soul component realizes all of this, then she also realizes something else, original spirit turned off. Turned off? And so, where is it now? Now it is there, but it is off. We need to turn it on again. So, do you know what we are going to do now? I tell her during the regressive hypnotic session, we turn off the alien active memory spirit and we turn on your spirit. Can we do it? Yes. Let's do it. Bang. Done. And she became normal again, she's healed from this issue, and she kicked in the ass even the alien active memory. But, she is not the original anymore, meaning her mind is now what is left. 550 The alien saved you in all of the above 4 cases. The alien saved your life. And so, the alien is good. New, the alien is an asshole. Because, if he didn't need you and if you were of no use to it, it was not gonna give a fuck about you. That's number 1. It saves your life in the same way we would save a cow's life, just because we need the cow for milking. Not because we care about the cow, as the American New Age claims. A long time ago, I read in an article from an American magazine about UFO that an abductee who had a tumor was healed. Because the aliens came and they pointed a beam of light against him. Some kind of green light or yellow light, whoosh. And, then the tumor was gone. And the aliens are good and they healed me. 640 Of course they healed you. Because they want to fuck you big time afterwards. So, that's the aliens' bounty, which cannot be mystified. We need to realize what's the reality of things, besides these, and we also realized, once again, that a human being has an amazing capability to live because this part. What you see is only the physical body container, and within it, there can be things that are much better, more interesting, and they can be a soul component, with her consciousness, a mental component, with its consciousness, and a spiritual part, with his consciousness. 722 Soul, mind and spirit, with 3 different consciousnesses, are in the abductee, but the way they are in the abductee, is that each one of them is. They are just minding their own bloody businesses, meaning each one of them rows in a different direction, one towards the right, one towards the left and one somewhere else. They do not have a target, they do not have a common goal. The consequence is that these three consciences, before long, they don't even know each other. They have no clue. Have you talked with your spirit? Have you talked with your soul? Have you talked with your mind? 751. These are just conventional names. We could have called them John, Joseph, Francis, or so on. No. But we have called them using these names because these are the ones which are mythical in the human myth. Myths are more than history, more than legends. Myths are the fact of the matter. And this is according to Jung, and also according to me. Because myth is the symbolic representation of reality disguised as a story. 822. There's million of examples. You go ahead and read Jung, and you'll find 60,000 of them. This is to say that even mankind know about this, men know it, the ancients knew that things are like this, they always knew, and they wrote about it in their stories and in their myth, in their legends. And even today, men know that things are this way. Once in a while there's a novel, a movie, an astral story, and there's this story in it. And men didn't have to look for it anywhere, they read it within themselves, they believed they created it, but it was actually already within themselves, and they offer this again as a story. 905. And we can give infinite examples. So, think about the human being like this, he has. I say this again, using the research that we performed on the aliens, we understood something basic about the way human beings are, we understood a bit also about his weaknesses, but we got to the understanding that the human being has these three things which he needs to join together, while he is the physical body container. 932. The Catholics, alas, because they always ruin a little bit of everything, they call it the tabernacle of the Holy Trinity. That's it. It's the body which holds mind, soul, and spirit. The Spirit, the Son, and the Father, somehow, are these things. There's the same symbolism in the sign of the cross. When one makes the sign of the cross, you can clearly see that he shows, on a neuro-linguistic programming level, its movement. Part 7, that's 1, 2, 3. Here we have three representations, the mind, the left side of the body and the right side of the body, which correspond to the soul, because is linked to the right lobe of the brain, and the spirit, which is linked to the left lobe of the brain, isn't it? Man doesn't realize that he simulates, with his act, and that he put his finger on the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, somehow, which he is pointing to, at an unconscious level. But NLP is just incredible. Under this point of view, it explains you the laws of physics. Or like the idea, as an example, that spacetime does not exist. Spacetime does not exist, according to Bohm's physics, past, present and future coexist in the same way. So, when you are imagining a line for time, you do like this. You open your arm on the right, and on the left, and you say past, present, and future. For you it's the opposite. Here's future, for you. Since I am in front of you. Unless you are left-handed, because things are the opposite, okay? 111. Why don't you say future, present, and past? Meaning, why don't you use this way of saying it? Because this is the space axis. I go forward. When you say I go forward in time, then I go forward. But going forward doesn't mean going forward in time, but going forward in space. When I identify something that has something to do with time, I identify it on this axis. Why? Because this is an axis on which all three of them are coexistent on the same axis. It is not going towards. I am going towards you. Nice to meet you. Or, you fucked me off. I am going backwards. It is just increasing the space between me and the person that is in front of me. Instead, this dimension, it is unconsciously, it's the time dimension, that's it. Just think that, in the way we used to think there's Bohm's physics. But you have to know it, otherwise you don't realize it. This is an aspect of the question 210. Another aspect of the question, which is this, okay, let's say this first. So in this way people get a little scared. Because I'm somebody who likes when people. I am piece of shit. So because they tell me I am a doomster, no, they tell me I am a doomster. That I do. It's the ones who belong to the Italian ufological centers, etc., etc. They say I do psychological terrorism, so, because I scare people. There's the aliens that are bad, they come and get you and they work your ass off. No. You cannot say that. The aliens are good. You must say that the aliens are good. Because when you write an article, you must write in this way, or we won't sell any more the newspaper. Because they buy the newspaper only if you say that the aliens are good, that's what they tell me. And that's why I don't want to write articles for newspapers that talk about these things, because then they come and say, "Oh, no. In this article you wrote that the aliens are bad." You can't do that. Because people are not going to buy the newspaper anymore, and we cannot make money anymore. 328. Do you see how this thing works? I already had to argue with some people, well, let's skip it. Something important. And what it means. Then I let you get to the result of this. You are there, during the hypnotic session, with one of these persons, and once in a while you happen to ask a question that might have nothing to do with the main subject, because you technically need it to distract the person, who might be emotionally affected. We let him say something else, which is beside the point, and he gets distracted. Or the question is perceived by the soul component in the wrong way, and so she answers you something else which you didn't want to know. Because she thinks that you asked her that question. When you talk to the soul component and you ask her. Because there's a particular procedure to follow, and at a certain point we say, look at all your physical body's containers that you have had, all at the same time. And let's talk about it for a second. For 35, every being who has a soul component. His soul component is shared, she is commonly shared, with all another series of physical body's containers, which are in her past and in her future. And this is a common soul component. The soul component, it's performing something like a scanning action, as if it was one of those old TV. Really, really fast, and it goes in one of them, then in the other, then in the other, then in the other, then in the other, and then again in one, then in the other, then in the other, then in the other. And between going in each of these, since time is quantized, it takes her less than 10 power minus 44 seconds. Meaning less than Planck's time. So, it is true that the soul component is only in one physical body's containers at a time, but it is also true that we don't realize this, since it is simultaneously in all of these physical body's containers, all at once. Okay. 527. I tell her, look at all of these physical body's containers. You see? There's these aliens that came to get you and to be a pain in the ass. It is necessary that you do something to free yourself. So the soul component sees. When the soul component sees that there are some physical body's containers behind, and she sees a lot of them, and I ask her, how many physical body's containers are in front of you? The soul component is never really able to count them, because, for a technical issue, the soul component, that is the right hemisphere in the brain, it's able to see everything at once. Meaning she can see anything, any event, which corresponds to a specific wave equation, but she sees the sum of the wave equations. So instead of seeing A and B, she sees a times B divided by 2. An average of the two things. She cannot see well reality. You can have the soul component see only one reality at a time. She can see them all, but she doesn't understand anything about it. She cannot tell you anything about it afterwards. This is the limit for the right hemisphere. The limit for the left hemisphere is a different one, and it has to do with the speed of light. This is the limit for the right hemisphere. 640. You can see properly, and describe properly, only one event, because for each event there's a wave equation, with its quantum number inside, n. If you see two events, you see the sum of the two wave equations. This is a quantum problem, there's nothing you can do about it. Okay. When I say to the soul, how many physical bodies containers are in front of you? And she answers 3, or 4, or 2. 4. Meaning she doesn't see more than that. What does this mean? It means that if every physical body container lives an average of 80 years, 4 times 8 equals 320. In 320 years, here. What does this mean? It means that, even if everybody is thinking about 2012, 2020, this collapse. The other one commits suicide. Planet Nibiru. That business, etc. Certainly. There is something that, according to my modest point of view, it is possible, it is going to happen. In short, you just walk around and see what's happening. You don't need to ask the Mayan high priest to know that we are in the shit, up to our neck. Do you see? There's no need for the Celestine's prophecy. That's the way it is. Here. You can see it. 820 here, there's another issue. Behind the issue for the catastrophic event, which, sooner or later, it is going to happen, either a slump on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. The revolution. I don't know. In my opinion, I think that it is all correlated and seasoned with a basic revolution of ideas. A cultural revolution which, at a certain point, it will burst out, 'cause people is going to say, that's enough. I'm pissed off now. And this. And all the rest will be a consequence of this event. Which is something that is going to happen soon, because there we are. You can see it every day, you just need to read the news. But after that, we don't seem to go on that much longer. 902 because, the soul component's physical body's containers say, I have only 3 left. I have only 4 left. Another, I have only 2 left. And these are things which I had never even written anywhere before. So they couldn't even have imagined it. If this is true. If what we have said until now is true, and they have a credibility index, it means that human beings are done here. But it also means something else. And this is it, what we really understand now, by the way these things work, is that we can recreate our own future, somehow. Meaning we can reprogram it. And this is something really important. And now I go back to the issue concerning the souls, 'cause they can see all of their lives at once. This is a new procedure that produces very beautiful results. And one can explain this both from the NLP point of view, because NLP does these kind of things without realizing it, and from Part 8 Bohm's physics, Pribram's physics, which say that the universe is a virtual universe. If it is true that future, past, and present do no exist, but everything is coexisting with the present, this means that our consciousness, which is God, I told you at the beginning, which is what creates space, time, and energy, meaning the virtual part of the universe, virtual meaning modifiable, when I become aware of my consciousness, and terms here are important. Consciousness, if still fixed, it's always the same, it never changes. It is unalterable, and that's why it cannot be described with mathematical descriptors. 0.41 On the contrary, space, time and energy are the virtual reality, meaning modifiable, and that can be described with formulas. So Professor Hack is perfectly right. Everything works perfectly. Formulas are wonderful to describe space, time and energy. But when you go in the tiny, you understand that there's something you can't quite make out. In that tiny there's consciousness, which contains volition, which modifies the universe. So, past, present and future, past, just like future, are actually coexisting with the present. When I change something about my present, it's my consciousness who did it, so you can change the past, and you can automatically change the future. This is what St. Augustine used to say. St. Augustine, poor wretched man. Look at what I picked up. St. Augustine used to say that time does not exist. There's a past which corresponds to the present, a future which corresponds to the present, and the present. St. Augustine. You see, at times, even these guys, they used to eat just a little, but at the end, they were able to create something good. On the other hand, we eat badly. Not little, but badly. So, what happens? What happens is that we can do this. 2.00. If all of this is true, then let's try to verify it with an experiment. The experiment, which we have tried many times, and so we know it works, it's the following. You talk with the person, you hypnotize him, you pull out the soul component and you tell her, go back to the beginning of time. Meaning, read, in that moment, on the little CD-ROM, the first moment in which you had the feeling to be. From that place you can see, very well from that point, all of your physical body's containers, with all of your lives. And you can see that the aliens come and they are a pain in your ass for each one of them, because they don't care about the physical body's containers, they care about the soul component. So, if your soul component is being taken in this moment, in this context, by the aliens, this is the same one which is taken when you were, as an example, in the ancient Egypt. And the ancient Egypt is in the room over there, it's not in the ancient Egypt. 2.50. Well, after you have seen this, and after you have had this experience, do you still want to have the same experience with the aliens? The soul component says no, she says that she doesn't care anymore, also because her physical body container suffers and cries. So, you know what we can do? We can get rid of the aliens. And how do we do that? The soul component says. It's simple, you just need to want to do it. Do you want to get rid of in your life the alien's presence? Yes. Let's do it. Woo. Clean. You talk to the person again, you let him describe the last abduction. And it is not there anymore. He has a different memory about it. He had just described it 5 minutes earlier in one way. Now he describes it in a different way. The alien comes, the wall opens up, and you say, no, this time I don't go with you. Fuck you. The alien turns around and he leaves. And he doesn't come back anymore. And you technically set free the person. Now, I don't go into the technical details, which would take longer. This is roughly what happens. Woo. Freed. 3.54. You are aware that the alien used to take you. You have this awareness and this memory. But now, the same things that you wrote in your journal, you read them now and you say, I haven't really written this. I mean, yes, I wrote this, but 4.10. And the more times goes by, the more the alien's memory becomes fuzzy. As if, in fact, it has never existed. And this is true for a simple reason. It's because, since memory doesn't exist, because past doesn't exist, then memory is just like a video camera, and you go in the other room, which is called past, where you go and read what's happening now. It is your past attached to this present. And since you have modified your past attached to this present, when you go and read it, you don't find any more the past which you used to remember. There's a different past. And so you don't remember the previous past anymore, because it is just like if it never existed. This is what Bohn's virtuality physics says. 4.52. The person comes out if the hypnotic state, and if you did a good job, he's not even going to remember, after a while, that they used to take him. He just doesn't remember it anymore. Just as if the problem never existed. 5.06. This is a fundamental aspect. But to get to this point, which is something that works, because people recover, in inverted commas. In inverted commas, because they are not sick, we had to understand that there is a soul component. We had to understand that this soul component doesn't have a time axis. We had to understand that Bohm's physics is the one that gives us the ability to interpret and understand, and then Bob's your uncle. In NLP this happens because the neuro-linguistic programmer tells you, do you want to stop drinking? For example, if I am alcoholic, do you want to stop drinking? Then look. Imagine in your mind that you are opening the pub, and in that moment you become big, very big. Very big. While the pub becomes little, little, very little. So, imagine this in your mind. See it in your mind. Create this reality in your mind. If you create this reality in your mind, then it is true, because you have it in your mind. But, in a moment you will project this in the hologram, meaning outside. 6.14 and, you will reprogram the outside. When this happens, changing the proportions in NLP has a fundamental archetypical meaning. You can dominate, because you are bigger, whatever is smaller than you. This is trivial. It is the machine language that lets you understand this. At this point, you imagine within yourself, that you don't want to drink anymore. If you do it properly. Good. Are you satisfied? Good. You anchor this to a pleasant situation. Do you remember when you were in the countryside the other day, when it was sunny and you were well? And you anchor it. There's a series of techniques to perform the anchoring. You are actually reprogramming, like with a PC. And at this point it starts the final trick. Look at yourself in the future, when you are old and you spent all your life without having a drink for all your life. Do you see that? Imagine it in your mind. 7.15 In doing this, while you are imagining this, that part of your mind, which is the medium-term memory, is hurling this image in the hologram. And it is reprogramming it. You took the image of the drinking you modified it, and you propose again in the hologram a completely new image of yourself. You have just reprogrammed the hologram. 7.38 This is what NLP does. The result is that, through the use of this system, the person who applied it by the neuro-linguistic programmer doesn't drink anymore. And what did the neuro-linguistic programmer do? He didn't realize it, but he actually used our technique. Our system. Our trick. Meaning, he reprogrammed the virtual reality. And this is the important thing. 800 There's also another aspect of the question. Meaning that I always check what time it is, otherwise. There's another aspect of the question, which is about the copies. This is what I want to talk about now. We already talked about it briefly. All of these are like elements which it is worth to go into thoroughly now. Which we didn't go into thoroughly in the past years, since we still didn't have all the necessary requirements. Now we have a methodology which seems to be good enough and useful to free us from the alien's presence. The alien doesn't come back any longer. He doesn't come back for many different reasons. First of all, because you, through your soul component, you can burn him anytime you want. Meaning you melt him. Because your soul component can modify the spacetime, and so she can modify whatever she likes. So, through regressive hypnosis, but not only through regressive hypnosis. And we are going to see in a second how we can also do this with an exercise called Simbad. We modify this kind of reality. 9-11 The alien, who has less consciousness compared to the abductee, has less willpower. He is less strong. And so when any abductee, who has also a soul component, and also consciousness and maybe an idea about soul, when he fights the alien, the abductee wins, because the abductee has more consciousness. He has more guns. He has a bigger gun. So the other consciousness succumb. 941 So And the ratio, abductees' consciousness versus non-abductees' consciousness, aliens' consciousness, it's not a ratio, I have 5, and you have 3. It's a ratio, I have 500 millions, and you have 2. This is the ratio. Part 9, and for the ones who have it. You can clearly see it, it is a remarkable difference. We can even see this and verify it amongst us. But let's talk about the aliens, since it is more convenient. Otherwise, I may end up talking about Berlusconi. Let's talk about the aliens instead. Not about the alienated. So, the alien doesn't have consciousness, because he doesn't have the soul component, which it's what he wants. In order to acquire all of those things that we unconsciously have, even if we are not aware that we have them. And he would love to have them. But that unfortunately he doesn't. See how the universe is? 041, and so, there's a fight. When you talk to the soul component and say, look, if the aliens come, you can throw them out. You can send them away. You can use your willpower and tell them, no, I am not coming with you. Oh, yeah. Do you want me to believe that? But you have to let her understand this very well. If you do, the soul component understands, and she starts this process. Then the following time the person calls and says, you know, last night. They came. And I am so happy. Ah, yeah? How come you are so happy? Because they came, yes, but I chased them away. So, it is true, it can be done. I told you that it can be done. And, after a while, this is what happens, they don't come back anymore. Why would they come back? It would be risky for them. 128 Going forward, we solved only 3/4 of the issue, because the alien doesn't have a B plan, he always comes back to be a pain in the ass. I didn't make it today, then I am going to try again tomorrow. If I won't make it tomorrow, I am going to try again the day after tomorrow. They don't have any kind of ability to say, something is not working. Let's try a different way, no. All of their life like that. The little one comes in going through between the TV and the fridge. Then all of their life they go in that way. Couldn't he try a different way? No. They tried the first time, the very first time it worked, so they always do it like that. 204 I was talking with this guy from Rome, this guy is a black belt in karate, and he used to sleep on a bed in a position like here. And he had a little metal plate, with some words Arab written on it, hanging on the wall, like over there. And every time he found that plate on the floor, he used to say, you see? That's my alarm. The aliens came, because the little plate is on the floor. During an hypnotic session he was able to remember what happened. When the aliens enter, all in a row, one after the other. They are all little like this. When the last one approaches the wall, and the wall is about to close itself, the wall is still open, and the last one bumps with his head on the little plate, because it becomes solid again, and so it falls down on the floor. 245 every single time like that. And one could say, are they idiots? Yes. They are idiots. And that guy used to have that plate as his alarm. I mean, you did it once, then think it over again. It's like that cartoon where you teach to the gray, I don't know if you have ever seen it, you teach him how to throw out the pizza, and he doesn't make it. And he keeps on throwing it against the wall every time. It's just the same. That's the truth of the matter. That's it. 313 The alien tries this again. So we were actually only halfway. And why? We were still not able to totally free the abductee from this plague. Yes. They don't get you anymore, but they keep on trying for as long as you live. An incredible pain in the ass. Okay, after a while one can just turn around and pretend he doesn't see, But I remember there was this woman, an abductee from Rome, who used to sleep with this guy, also an abductee. And one evening these beings get in the house, and he says, fuck. Not tonight. I need to go to work tomorrow. I mean, while at the beginning of the operation he was scared. The aliens come, and what will they do to me? Now he's like, no. Not tonight. Come back tomorrow. I mean, the situation is completely changed. Once we are at that level, the interaction between you, the puppet, and the alien who would normally move the puppets. Now you are not a puppet anymore. That's that. And this is not bad at all. For 16, it was a first step. We were going forward. And how do we eliminate the alien issue forever? We need to restructure your future. Eliminating the aliens using consciousness. If your consciousness and your soul component want to do this, they go through this journey. They go in the first moment, the beginning of events. They clean all of this, just as if it was a blackboard, which is happening in the present. Because everything is in the present, and in the end, there's no alien anymore. He's not there anymore. He doesn't come back anymore. For 49, the alien. The more we were improving our defense system, the more he was trying to find, within his organization, the opportunity to continue in his actions. We couldn't realize earlier about the things which I am about to tell you, because the alien wasn't interested in using them. So, I am talking with the ex-abductee, completely freed. Nobody is coming back anymore. But this person was always saying, but I feel tired, and I don't understand why, yes, they don't come. But there's something wrong. There's always something wrong. 527. So, the abductee is usually like this, he statistically shows signs of cyclothymia. Meaning, some days he's like, hey, I am cool. We'll solve everything. We are going to kick the aliens in their ass. And the day after, we'll never make it. We are ruined. We'll die. I mean. Not only this, the abductee is also really prone to. 556. Think about this thing. This event. That will happen. And what are we going to do about it? Come on. Let's be full of life. Let's try to do something. Let's move. Let's do something. They are. How can I say it? They suffer as if they were congenitally pessimist. And this is true for different reasons, obviously. But we need to get rid of this attitude, or we cannot get rid of the aliens either. You need to do something. You need to get up and do something. 6:30. In that period, we realized that the alien had found another system to trick you. The copies. 6:37. I need to know that when the person is taken by the alien, they put him in a sort of machine, and next to him it appears ZZZZ. A copy of him that gets to be used in different ways. In that situation, the abductee, who sees this thing and see this copy of him being created out of nothing, gets a fright. Because he has an identity crisis. Who am I? It is me? Or it is him? He moves just like me. You know that identity crisis may lead to suicide. 7:12. Okay? So, in this case, there is a serious mental destabilization. Why do they need these copies? We found out that they need them to perform a series of different things. And I will also tell you what these things are. First of all, they needed to keep in the brain a copy of the alien active memory, meaning the alien part which is in you, and that cannot live outside, because it hasn't got a body, but it is within you. It uses your body, your energy, waiting for somebody to find it a different body to get into. And this is how it postpones its death day. It doesn't want to die. You have a body and a brain with free room. I get inside there, and I stay there until the time when they are able to build a new body for me. 752 All of this creates several issues, cause this is what causes the abductee to appear to a psychiatrist like a schizophrenic person, because his personality splits. Every now and then, he looks in the mirror and he says, "How come I only have 5 fingers today?" That's what the abductee says. How come I don't have webbed fingers? Or I look at myself in the mirror, and I realize I have vertical pupils. That's what he says. So, that's the alien active memory which is inside of him, and that once in a while, bang! And it comes out. So, the copy is meant to keep a memory copy for the alien active memory because these AAMs are memories for aliens who are scientists, or, as an example, the plumber. One day they need a plumber to repair the faucet in the spaceship. So, where's the plumber? The plumber is in Rossi Giovanni's body, so let's go and get Rossi Giovanni. We get Rossi Giovanni, we perform a nice abduction, we switch his brain on the alien AM, which is a plumber, and we ask to the plumber how to repair the faucet. 904, and the day after this, the abductee is going to have a weird memory. Well, I don't know. I was there, in this place. There was a snake. 7 feet 11 inches tall, with a long tail. Who was muttering me something? And I was answering him. And what were you guys talking about? Well, about physics. What language were you speaking? I don't know. I couldn't understand. That's it. That's the typical kind of dream the every abductee dreams. And this is because of switching to the AAM when they perform an abduction. You talk with your people, cause they want to know something from you. Then they switch you back. They put you back in your bed, and then you remember this as if it was a dream. 945 All the abductees had this kind of dream. At least once in a lifetime, they all had it. The copy is needed in order not to miss the capacities of the original. Yes. Part 10 Yes, it's obvious that they don't let you commit suicide. But if you slip on a banana peel, you bump your head. 4 seconds. They don't have time to intervene, and you are dead. And the AAM is dead. The end. Do you remember the abductee we were talking about earlier? She didn't have an AAM. When the soul component looks at the physical body container from the outside, after the accident, or when she looks at herself from the outside while she's on the armchair during the hypnotic session, she looks in her head and she says, "No, the brains is gray. It's not white." But that means it is not black either. Meaning, the AAM, when the brain remains 3 minutes without oxygen, dies. The brain is dead, and the AAM is dead. She did not have an AAM. 040 because everything needs to make sense, otherwise it's the end of it. Another way in which the copy is used, performing missions as a super soldier. That is, they train the copy, using a very weird technique, and then it is possible that they send it with an explosive belt, so that it explodes somewhere. Who cares? You can make another one. You need to understand that we realize this, because every abductee has a memory about a dream of a war operation. As examples, they performed industrial espionage, or they exploded themselves, or they run around with a machine gun so they had other things explode. Each one of them. And this is weird. Very weird. Why? Where do these dreams come from? 130 So, then we understood something essential. First of all, the copies are used to do these kind of things, and they store these copies in some closets. They activate it, and in the moment in which they activate it, they program it through the right eye. They insert some information using the optic nerve, that communicates with the left hemisphere in the brain. But if you are left-handed, they do this in the left eye. They give you a program. They wake you up, and you are already in the battlefield. You perform your mission. You go back to the same place, they take you and they turn you off again. 2:15 The copy's memory cannot be accessed. Unfathomable. When you hypnotize a copy, and this has happened to me a couple of times, the copy answers you in a weird way. It answers, vocal access unidentified. If you ask, "What's your name?" 4521, where do you live? Next to 4522, in the closet. It answers you like that. Do you see? Etc., 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 etc. Then, if you ask, who gives you orders? Somebody like you. What does that mean? It means it is a military man, not an alien. Somebody like you. So, what actually happens is that when they turn on a copy, the copy is an extra physical body container. X+1. For all your physical body's containers. The ones that you have in the past, in the present, and in the future. It is just like if you were on a PC, and it appears to you the icon for a new PC in the network. 3:17 The information, instead of going like tune 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 like that, they go like tune 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 tune. Tack in the copy, tune 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 tune. So what happens is that you live, and at night, for example, you have a common knowledge about what the copy is doing. And you think you are just dreaming about it, but actually is the sole component that is partially recalled in the copy, and when she comes back in the original, she downloads in you her knowledge about what happened. As if it was a video camera, which goes in the other room. 3:49, and that's why you have a feeling that it was you who actually did that at night. And you don't tell them as if they were just a dream. But just like they were reality, you move your eyes to the correct side. You have a feeling of brilliant colors. You wake up in the morning feeling pain in your arms, just like if you were the one who performed the military action. They need the copy also for a third, and most terrible thing, when the alien cannot get you anymore because your consciousness is so big that the soul component has decided, that's enough. 4:30 when the soul component says, that's enough. Since she is not able to talk about time, for example, I said to somebody, from now on, in the future, they won't take you anymore, saying this she didn't understand a thing. In the future? She thinks about it a bit. Do you mean never again? She answers you like that, never again. Do you mean never again? Yes, I mean never again. That's it. Never again, she understands it. In the future, she doesn't. 504 This is just to explain the issues you have when you talk with the soul. What do you mean in the future? Maybe it means never again. It is just a translation issue. I talk to the mind, and the mind translates in archetypes. And vice versa. But sometimes the mind is not able to translate in archetypes. Because it is like a dictionary, based on its life's experiences. So, depending on who you are, you may or may not do a good translation. Okay. 533 The important thing is that, when you don't allow them to take you any longer, they use the copy to take your soul component. They turn on the copy. The soul component gets to be recalled by a new PC in the network. Zoom. It ends up in there. In that moment the machine gets the soul component. They close you in a cylinder, and they suck your energy through the copy. And how did we realize that? We did by chance, at first. When I had an hypnotic session, without realizing it, with a copy. 6:10 When you hypnotize a copy, you are recalling the soul component which is somewhere else. And you recall it back in there. And the first times we couldn't understand anything. We were there, and I say to this person, she was a woman. First of all, she went into trance in a completely different way. And from a corporal point of view, I couldn't understand. There was something I didn't understand. When you ask her for her name, she gives you a number, X2592, okay? So then, let's talk about it. Now I am going to play a little game on her. Let's go back to the beginning of time. Now I am going to trick you. Let's go back to the beginning of time. Yes, let's go back to the beginning of time. What do you see? Nothing. 700 nothing. Dark. There's nothing to see. Because according to it, the copy, there's no beginning of time. The copy is fake. She only has a little disk inside, we could call it this way. So, I was trying to say, but your physical body's containers. And she says, which one? Your physical body container. The real one. Ah, you mean the one that is over there. What do you mean with the one that is over there? You mean the one that is over here on this armchair? No. This one is the fake one. The one that is over there is the real one. And I was trying at first to make her understand, no. Because then you may have some crazy dissociation. And I go, no. This is your real physical body container, and she goes, no. This is the fake one. The real one is over there. Where? In the cylinder. 747 fuck. And what do I do with the copy now? She wakes up, and what do I tell her? You know, you are a copy. Thanks, and see you later. At that time there were some. There. Okay. Let's make it short, we don't care now about what happened then. We made it. That's when we realized that there was a possibility to communicate between the copy and the original. Because the soul component, anywhere she was, either in the copy or in the original, you can recall her in any physical body container you want. Because time doesn't exist. And space doesn't exist either. So you recall her and she comes. And she stays there. The soul comes and stays there. But then? Wait. And you see that we can do the same trick in the opposite way. You have the original, and I say to the soul component through the original, listen, why don't you go and look for your copies? And she goes and she looks for the copies. And when she finds them, I say, listen, you should get rid of these copies. But poor things. What do you mean? They are fake. Ah, okay then. Voom, screwed. 846, when you screw them, they don't have any more chances to get you. And you, from that moment on, are completely free. So, we had to discover the liberation process in different steps. Many steps. It took us 20 years. Yes, we have been talking about this here in only 2 hours, but it took us 20 years to find out about all of these details. All of these details. 20 years. So, now, when we work with the abductee, 921 we try to work in only one step. With only one hypnotic session. Or 2, it depends. With 2 we can make it alright. With only 1 we still have issues. And with the single session, which doesn't last for the typical 45 minutes, as a regular hypnotic session, but that lasts 1 hour and 40 minutes, you have different steps. First, you talk to the person, and you let him remember one of the times in which they came and they really screw him. In the moment when he realizes. Because he must realize, the soul component needs to realize this. And you need to be sure that he is remembering it, meaning everything else, which is in his brain. Part 11 Lux, alien active memory, are not interfering. Now, you find the system to link to the soul component, and we clear all of the microchips which are in the skull, in the body, and so on. We eliminate them. How? Through the use of willpower. What do you mean the use of willpower? Yes. Can you see it from the outside? It's called double disassociation. Can you see your skull from the outside? Look. There's some weird little balls which are not yours, and the soul goes, yes, it is true. And who put that stuff there? Oh, well. It was that one who looks like a snake who put it there. It's the slimy one. I mean. They use this sentences like, the slimy one. I remember, there was a woman who used to call him the grass snake. She used to say, the grass snake came last night. The grass snake. Yes, the grass snake. 044 This girl freed herself. Now I have another one who uses the same terminology. You see? Because from the outside. Okay, let's talk for a second about a technical note, the disassociation process. You can see yourself in two different ways. For example, you can dream about yourself in two different ways, from the inside, as if the video camera was within you. Or from the outside, seeing that you are doing something. These two processes are linked to the right and the left brain lobes. When we look at things from the inside, we are mainly using our left brain, that is the male brain, which is rationality. When we see ourselves from the outside, we are, mainly, using the right brain, meaning the soul component. So, in a disassociation process, when you see yourself from the outside, you don't realize this. But I am having the soul component doing the job. And since your soul component uses, in order to understand and see things, communication channels that are completely different. She doesn't have eyes. So she sees things that we cannot see. Can you see the microchip in there? Oh yes, I can see it. And where is it? And she always says where it is. Exactly in that point, there. There's one there. There's one there. There's one there. And there's one there. Always like that. 157 So, she cannot just pretend. Because she finds them, all. And then I say to her, and now, in the same way we modified spacetime, now we modify it. We get the microchips, and using your willpower you bump them off. And the soul component says to me, and what if the brain breaks? Don't worry. The brain doesn't break. If you do a good little job, you'll see that the brain doesn't break. Oh, well. Then it's good. And she does it. The soul component is like a little kid. 226 She's a little kid. Who asks herself questions, and what if I break the brain? Then, when you verify, afterwards, through the use of X-rays, there's two things that can happen: either this little ball is not there anymore, and there's a hole in its place. Or there's still this little ball, but it is broken, and it doesn't work any longer. 246 That's it. At times you can even have a feeling in your body. Little feeling. As if they were cutting something within you, burning something, messing around. The person can feel this. Because it can be done with an hypnotic session, but also with the Simbat exercise, which is some sort of pseudo-self-hypnosis. In this way we free everything. The microchips. Then it's typical to find something else that we didn't think about. Especially in the female genitals, they put something that I've never understood what it actually is, but we need to get rid of that thing too. They need it for something. I do not know. 328 Then, if you focus on each single device, the soul component says, yes, the other guy put this in me. The one who looks like you. When she says, the one who looks like you, she means a military man. Or she could say, no, the blonde one. But the blonde one. Which one? The blonde one. So then you need to ask her, how is he dressed? He's in blue. Okay, so that means we are dealing with somebody. Otherwise she just says, the blonde one or the tall one. And, now. So, microchips, we got rid of them. Look in your head. There's still something that doesn't look good. What can you see? For a 00 she sees the alien active memory, that stays in a certain area of the brain, and the lux, which is this little shining ball. That tries to escape. It doesn't want to be caught, to be found. But you need to get it, and you need to screw it, you need to burn it. You cannot just send it away, otherwise it gets back inside. And it just wastes your time. Just screw it right away. If we make it, if we were convincing enough, the soul component does her job. 4.25 Then look behind, in the back, look in the spine. The upper part, and the lower part, 5th dorsal. 5th lumbar, that's where all the abductees always have a terrible back pain. Just there. We could create an abductees club, you can recognize them from the 5th lumbar. Because there was an operation just there. At first we used to think it was because they took a bone marrow sample, I wouldn't swear on it, but it looks like it, like a bone marrow sample. They take the person. They drive a needle on the left side, and a needle on the right side. And they cut in the middle. And then they cryogenize that part, that is, you feel cold, that's what the abductee says. We supposed it was a bone marrow sample. But I don't know. I don't know about it. 5.18 The soul component sees those things. And she gets rid of all of them. So now we are, at this point, with the abductee who needs to proceed with this cleaning procedure. Temporal. And after this we say to him, just like in NLP, just the same, now, look into the future. Are they coming back? Yes. Fuck. But they don't come back for me. Not so bad. They come back for my daughter. Well. Yes. Of course. Because of my daughter, who I still don't have. Because, in this example, she was a young girl. For my daughter. But that's not my present boyfriend. She's looking in the future. That's somebody else. Forget that. Let's not make subtle distinctions about the future photo album. Let's stick to essentials. She is looking in the future. She is looking in there. 6.15 And so the aliens are going to come back. They come back for my daughter. However, now, we are going into a completely different subject. If you have completely freed yourself, you have broken up the chain. The alien is not going to come back, not even for your children. Because he cannot find you anymore. He doesn't know where you are anymore. Instead, if you are somebody who says something like, no, poor little aliens. I really love them. I send them away when they come. But they come back. Then you find yourself with the aliens that come and get your children. That's why I always say, let's do something nice. A good cleanup, once in a while, it's good, isn't it? There you go, that's the idea. Because we always need to complete this, and carry it on to the end. Never be afraid. Never risking to do something. And just do half of it. What do you care? But poor alien. He is in need. I got that. He's in need. And so you do something beautiful, you choose. You help the alien, and he is going to kill you. So what do? What do you choose? Look in the future. What's going to happen if you don't do anything about it? Look in the future. The future is there. It's just in the other room. 7.3 for the soul component, after 30 seconds in silence, goes, hey, no. Hey. No, 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 no. Not that way. Hey, no. That's it. You see? Hey, no, she says. Now, let's reach an agreement. Also because, otherwise, you are going to come back here to me again. I mean, it's a tremendous effort to do these things. 7.55 because this is a tiring job. It is tough to fight this. And so, finally, if you detach, if you break all of the knots, the bonds, then they are not coming back ever again. And they won't be back. Ever again. How long does it take to get rid of this issue? I need to say that I don't know, because we still haven't got the final statistics. Because, since these are some fairly new procedures, I do not have a statistic. Because the speed we can reach in freeing a person could be linked to a whole series of problems which I presently do not know. But I need to say this, 8.37 I don't know if you have noticed, probably some of you have seen this, that I posted on the web, on our 2 websites, and also on Facebook, the story of a girl, a story that I called 105 males. Etc., etc. Through these 105 letters, that we exchanged in 2.5 months, this girl has freed herself on her own, following the mental exercises that I told her. 9.07 This means 2 or 3 things, not just one. First, hypnosis is not necessary. Second, that you need a strong willpower. Third, that you need to follow it, because, if I exchanged letters 105 times with this woman, since I receive 1,500 emails per week, I don't know if you can realize what I need to do to answer them. And you need to follow them. You go and check out at what time she used to email me. 1 a.m., 12 a.m., 3 a.m., and then I answer right away, and then, maybe she answered after 10 minutes with another email, and then I had to answer right away. If 5 hours went by without an answer from me, that's it. I knew you were going to abandon me. This way. Part 12 This is one of the basic reasons why not everybody can do this type of work. Because once you are dealing with 3 or 4 cases, and you are not used to this, they heap all their problems on you. Not only the issues coming from the abduction, but also the family issues, the issues with the significant other, the issues about this or that. And about mom, dad. And you are just gonna get crazy. You just lose your mind. Then you need somebody who can help you. Nobody there. 0.25 until now. Nobody there. That's why I said, look, I am going to get some vacation starting on May, but this creates some issues for us. Because, obviously, we need to have a lot of people working on this, at this point. And there's a basic reason for this, and this reason is a number. I don't know if this is true or false, I don't know which is this number, but, if this is true, there's a specific amount number of soul components. Once this amount of freed soul components is reached, all of these will work as a catalyst to free all the others. Recently, I have been noticing that, while it used to take me a very long time to have an abductee understand how he was supposed to behave, now, when they look for me, they already know what to do. This is linked to a working hypothesis that is called the last monkey theory. Yes, that's right. And this is based on another theory, which is called the morphogenetic field theory. In fact, besides the different names one can use to refer to this idea, somebody else in some other scientific field already realized that something like this happens. The experiment is pretty easy. There's a monkey in Africa that learns how to crack open a coconut shell with a stone. Then, automatically, in Bengal, another monkey, belonging to a different tribe, simultaneously learns the same thing. 2.00 I don't know if you ever happen to notice something basic about history. For example, when a certain new way of painting starts, it starts everywhere in the world. Or a certain way of creating a culture. Or, for example, a scientific discovery, it starts here, but also it starts simultaneously in many other different places. Then the one who is faster gets to win the Nobel Prize. But what actually happens is that there's something like a school, without any of this people involved needing to talk together. 2.28 This happens because there's no space-time. So, what one person thinks, goes in the general akasha, something that we call the hologram, and anybody who goes and read the hologram ends up reading that same thing. Meaning, my experience gets to be unconsciously available to anybody in the universe. Not only for terrestrials, but for the whole universe. 2.56 This allows us to understand, as an example, the Friedel-Crafts alkylation of benzene was invented by Friedel, who was Belgian, and also by Crafts, not the soup cubes guy in the US. But they invented it simultaneously. 3.20 And so there are many examples like this. There's this morphogenetic field and we are all connected with each other, according to the creators of this theory. In fact, it is just the idea that space and time do not exist. So, if we become aware of who we are, and we can say that this was facilitated by studying the aliens, because if there were no aliens we were not going to understand all of this. So, now that we know these things, we are able to chase away the aliens, and we are also able to do now so many other things. And we were not able to do them earlier, because we thought we were not able to do them. As an example, raising a glass of water using our willpower. One needs to be aware of it. But it can be done. For 14 all of our abductees have strong abilities in the area of paranormal phenomena. Strong. You have no idea. Strong. Special effects are nothing compared to this. And then, there's somebody who already realized this. And there are researchers who secretly study these phenomena. And they are in a few universities, one in Europe, Austria, which is linked to another one in the US, the Massachusetts University. They study the remote viewing phenomena. Do you know how much a remote viewer gets paid in Europe? You go there, and they test you. If you pass it, you participate in their experiments. And they say it is just for ecological reasons. And they say, look, let's try to work pro-ecology with some coordinates. Then they give you some coordinates. You don't know what they are. And you must look in there. 5.28 Then you can find out, because somebody did find out, and they came and told me. That instead of working pro-ecology, and checking polluting plants, you can find out that what it needs to be checked at is some military bases. So, do you know how much money earns somebody who do this job? €1,600 per hour. Per hour. Somebody did realize that this can be done, didn't they? And these are government and military agencies, which secretly use some universities to do this job. And they do not even say to the person that is working as a remote viewer what he is actually doing, and what's the reason for his job. 607 So, then, this leads to another remark. If I get 10 of our abductees and I have them do that kind of job, do you want to bet that tomorrow morning some kind of tremendous thing is going to happen somewhere? We realized about these things because, during the hypnotic sessions, we got to know that the abductees have these kind of abilities. Yes, even when during in hypnotic sessions the soul component told me an historical phrase like, I already mentioned this once, do you want me to turn the TV on? Do you want me to change channel? Bang! And the TV channel changes. I mean. But besides this she can do a lot of other things. Phew! 6:54 During the hypnotic session we realize that the girl, or the boy, is taken. They put him, when he is a little child, they have him sit on a chair, with an helmet on his head, and they tell him, can you see those light bulbs over there? The military man says to her, can you see? You need to break them all, and the little girl says, no, how can I do that? I don't want to do it, and they go, look. See on this screen? There's your mom in the other room. She's sitting and she's tied up. And now we are going to give her an electric shock. Ting. 7:23. But we won't give her an electric shock if you blow all the light bulbs. And the little girl cries. And if she cries, ting. Electric shock to her mum. So, the little girl eventually starts to blow the light bulbs. You see. You did good. So we won't give an electric shock to your mum anymore. Your mum is not suffering anymore. It was you who made your mum suffer, that's what the military guy says to the 3-year-old girl. And now we have to do something else, again, so that your mum won't suffer. You see in that screen over there? You see there's that guy with an explosive belt next to that building? Well, now you are going to have that guy blow. And the little girl cries. And so, ting. Electric shock to her mum. And so the little girl makes the guy over there blow up. That's it. These are the things that we find out when we hypnotize people. And that is how we realize that the abductees have strong abilities in the area of paranormal phenomena, and that the military use them for their own goals. 8:20. A huge mess. That's one more reason to stop all of this. And you have to say this to the soul component. You have to say to her, you need to understand that your energy, and she goes, but I don't care about it. How many times I heard the soul component saying. Even last Friday. The last hypnotic session. It was last Friday. So very recent. A girl. Let's talk about it, so we have some real cases that we can quote. I only had one hypnotic session with this girl earlier than 2 years ago. Then she went abroad. She lived there. And she's come back. But, while abroad she used to write me and say, but I still have these dreams. They come. And do this and that, and her boyfriend used to say, they are not leaving her alone. Fortunately she had a good relationship with her good boyfriend, who understands what all of this is about, so that we can keep on working on this. Otherwise the relationship is hard, when one is abductee and the other isn't. Either she is and he is not. Or he is and she is not. Or both of them are. And it is always a mess. And the relationship needs to be completely restructured. 9:34. So, what happens is that I become the psychologist for the couple. Me. And if my wife was to think about this, she would start laughing. But anyway. Nobody does it. I need to do it. I don't know what are the disastrous results, but I need to do it in the end. So, the issue is. Part 13. This girl already came 2 years ago. And then I was implementing these new techniques. I got in touch with her soul component. I made her remember her abduction. She didn't remember anything at that time. She couldn't remember not even one of them. But her evaluation test was highly positive. So I took her, I put her under hypnosis, and I made her remember. Her boyfriend used to say, she just faints. All of a sudden, she is there, talking with me, and she stops. And you go, hey. Wake up. But she is not there anymore. After 10 minutes she wakes up, she looks around, and she cries. Why are you crying? Where were you? What were you doing? We don't know. 0:43. So, at this point, I am talking with her, 2 years ago. And I let her remember that time when she was at the mechanic. I just brought my RV to the mechanic, and her boyfriend tells me, I turned around, and I found that she was sitting on a chair and crying. So I asked her about something, but she wasn't answering me. She was not there. So, I was thinking, poor thing. Maybe she's sick, schizophrenic. What do I know? And I was starting to notice something. And so, I have her remember that experience. It starts when she is there, at the mechanic's garage, where her boyfriend drove the RV for repair, and, all of a sudden, she is there, crying on the chair. No. Go back. There's a missing part, go back. And go back, go forward, and go back, go forward. And there was nothing. All of a sudden, she sees some weird short beings, light blue, that just passed in front of her. What are they? Who knows? I don't know. Everything is still. When she says, everything is still, it means that spacetime is frozen. 1.56, and now what's happening? And now I am going up. I am going up in the light beam. There's a shining light beam. I am going up. And that's when they really screwed her over. When they put her back, and time is still, instead of putting her back where she was, they put her back sitting on the chair. That's why she cannot remember how she got to sit on the chair. Because she didn't go there on her own. They put her there. The alien made a little mistake, which is important for us. 2:21, and she remembers this and that and so on. While doing this, I talk with her soul component, and I say, be sure not to let them take you again. Otherwise, we are ruined, and the soul component goes, that's okay. I got everything. So, she leaves. She lives abroad for a year. She comes back. Always with the same boyfriend, who says, every once in a while she gets to be disoriented, she stops. I know what happens when you stop. For example, they turn on the copy, your soul component detaches and goes there, and you just lost consciousness about who you are. Because they are sucking up her energy while the soul component is over there. So, that's my idea. I talk with her, I put her under hypnosis, and I say to her, now you are going to tell me about the last time when they came. So the image opens up, and it is about 3 days ago. When they were at the gas station. Because they have this RV, they live in it. They don't want to stay in just one place, so they move about. 3:21 And she says, I am sitting there, by the metal table outside, while my boyfriend is getting gas. Actually methane. And all of a sudden everything stops. Everything is frozen. Look. Can see you anybody around? No, there's nobody. That's the moment when the bubble left, there's no living being, there's only you, and there's only things. There's no fish in the aquarium anymore, the abductee says. And what's happening? And I move. And I am going towards the RV, but. And she was going like this. For a 02, I cannot go through this. The RV is over there. But I cannot go through. And now what's happening, because I set her in front of a still picture when we start, look. This is the frozen picture about that one experience, but the picture is ripped. There's a tear in the middle. And how is this tear? It's black. It's a hole. A hole. That becomes light blue. And then there's something that twists and twists and twists. And what happens? Some people are coming. Some people are coming? And how do they look like? One is wearing an overall. And I cannot move as wearing an overall? And how does he look like, this one wearing the overall? She is looking at him. For a 44 you can see that she's moving her eyeballs, 'cause she's looking at the scene. And she goes, it's a chicken with an overall. It's a chicken with an overall. There's one of the type of aliens who looks like a chicken, he's 13 feet tall. A chicken. With an overall. A chicken with an overall? A chicken with an overall. 507. Then there's these other beings, and they are orange-haired. They get me, and they are putting something in my ear. They are pointing a gun in my ear. As a matter of fact, we then found out that it is not a gun, but it is something else. They force her to be still, and there's something here which acts on her left ear. She's left-handed. They are taking out the ear implant. And then? And then they are running away, 'cause they are saying Wayne to hurry. We need to hurry. And they go back into the hole. They go back into the hole, and everything re-wins again, and shoo. And so, before they go back in the hole, and after everything moves again, I get the soul component, and I stop her. Because things don't add up. I had told her, don't let them get you anymore. I had told her 2 years earlier, but you know. She needs to understand this. 558. Instead, she let them take her again. The soul component says, but they do not get me, they get her. Because I had told her, don't let them get you anymore. I didn't say at all, don't let them get your physical body container anymore. 610. You are supposed to give a precise explanation to the soul component. They get her. But wait, don't you care about it? No. Why should I care? I run away, hee. I go somewhere else. Why should I care? They get her. What do you mean they get her? That's your container. That's important. It lets you do this, and that. Have they got you anymore? No. They don't get me. So, we found out that everything we did 2 years earlier was very good. The issue was that I was not very precise, when I still hadn't understood that one needs to be extremely precise. 643. Extremely precise. So, after 2 years, I reprogrammed her again, so I had her see all of the aliens that she hadn't seen yet, etc., all of the different chickens. The different things. And we performed a general cleaning. And I put her again in the conditions to live for 200 more years without having anybody busting her balls. When, at the end of all of this journey, I asked her, when your physical body container remains a little bit dull, what happens? Do they get you? Did they get you? If I were to say, do they get you, we'd be ruined. Or you were the one to get out? 725. Both of them. Otherwise we are too tight here. In this container there's no room. There used to be no room. Now, since nobody is busting your balls in here, you have room. That's true. Now I feel so much better in here. Well, you should try not to wander too much. 741. But isn't it like a cage? No. It is not a cage. Then, when this container will pass away, and it is done doing its business, then you can go wherever you want. But now you need to stay here. You need to protect your physical body container. You protect your physical body container, and your physical body container protects you. Then you need give the long explanation on how to do that. You have to explain everything. So then she says, yes, okay. When she says, okay, we can get out of the hypnotic state, because, finally, this person won't be taken ever again. Or, if they take her, they do it in a way that we haven't identified yet in the moment when we reprogram that person. We had said, 2 years ago, don't let them get you anymore. No worries. The soul component says, who, me? No. They make me go in that thing over there, that kind of device, no. I am not going there. Where there's the other guy inside, that snake with a tail. No. I am not going in there. But they were using the physical body container. And they were also using it to create some of their children. Because, once in a while, they used to get her, and there was the device, and so on. But why? Because in the end, who cares? It is just the physical body container. Then, they used to turn on the copy, and they were sucking her energy through the copy. And the soul component didn't realize that. As long as they do not take me. You see? That's it. That's what happens. 8:53. And how did we realize about this? We realized it because, every once in a while, something happened during the hypnotic session, which was not expected. How come we were able to understand this kind of scenario? Because we have been hypnotizing hundreds of people. And for each one of them, there was something a little different. And this has given us an amazing sea of data, which allowed us to create a way to interpret all of this. Or, we were not going to be able to do this. This is, if you will, the type of situation we are dealing with. 9:29 now. What about the future? This is the issue, if I do. We used to do many hypnosis. As an example, there's a person who needed 12 hypnotic sessions to free himself. 12. Which means a year and 1/2. The first guy we had worked with, Valerio Lanzi, we worked with him 2.5 years. Part 14, after getting ready for a period of 5 months, and then we were able to understand only 5% of the whole story. Now, we are able to do everything even without using hypnosis. And why? Because you just need to explain carefully to the person what she needs to do, using the SIMBAD exercise. SIMBAD is just an acronym. It means a system to get rid of the aliens once and for all. 0.28. I used the case of the 105 emails also to let you understand this thing. Because you are going to read this story, and you are going to be bummed out about it. Because you are going to say, fuck. She freed herself just on her own. She really worked her ass off. And in the process of freeing herself, she got free from the aliens and also the alienated. Partially also from her husband. Because when there's this kind of relationships, you read it. There's an email which says, my daughter read my husband's cell phone a text and she found out he has an affair. Now, if we say it like this, it's something normal. But in a situation when you need support, help, and some kind of. In that situation you just feel like you are screwed. You feel like you cannot continue on anymore. Just in that moment, according to what that woman says, which is the story of a journey during which she increased her level of consciousness, and this is for the whole universe. The aliens on one side, and the alienated on the other. 1.47 Yes, because you become more aware mainly about this specific issue, but the whole universe looks different to you. And so, in the end, now she is happy. She found a new job. She's working outside of her house. And she has a new point of view. She immediately changed her image, the one she uses on a social network, and this is a sign that let us understand she has a different self-image now compared to the one she had before. 2.10 And she has 2 daughters. And now we are working with them, to free them in the same way. The first one is 14 years old, and the other one is 2.5 years old. And this latter one says, Mom, last night the tailed ones came back again. What a drag. Can't we make them stop? Mommy. And now, when any one of them realizes that they are coming back, they all wake up simultaneously. And there's an issue of internal struggle. Because the mother doesn't get to be caught anymore. The older sister has perfectly understood what is happening, and she is working on it. And the smaller one, also. Because every single of word in those letters is meaningful. If you realize it, in those 105 males there's a point when the soul component talks, and says that she won't be caught anymore. And that it's going to take a long time to free the daughter. 3.23 While the younger one will always be caught. As we proceed with our work, in the exercise that her 14-year-old daughter makes, her soul component says, "You will free yourself before your mom. And it will take some more time to free your little sister." The future is already changed. It has changed because something was done in order to change it. So now, if things will stay like this, both of the two daughters will free themselves. And, in a little bit, the younger daughter won't free herself in a long time, but very soon. Because the future has been changed. When I was doing, a couple of days ago. There are some episodes which are amazing, when, during the last hypnosis with that girls we got to the point of merging together soul, mind and spirit, which are supposed to really merge together during the moment in which one's is going out of hypnosis. 4.33 Because merging together means merging the three consciousnesses, so you become a monad, so just one thing, and there's no more room for the alien. I always say to them, you will have to. Now I am about to count to 10, and everything will happen at the same time. And you will be just one, with your soul, your mind, and your spirit. For a 53, and the soul says to me, no, not yet. In a little while. When the mind will be mature. Now it's not the time yet. And I need to let that be because this means that the time has not come yet for this person to unify all her forces and do that thing. I cannot force the person to do it, because that's not how things work. Concerning this, I discovered something really nice, fucking fortunately, as usual. So, there was this case, about this lady from Ancona, who wasn't really understanding what was happening to her. Yes. She knew it. But she wasn't really aware about this fact. And it was always very hard to have her go into a hypnotic state. Yes, it happened in the end, but I wasn't satisfied. She came to see me 3 or 4 times. In the space of a year. So, she kept on coming back more and more strong. 5:53 The aliens were not able to get her anymore, but they were still trying. And the military guy was still coming back. And then the copy, and so on. And, I knew what was really happening. She wasn't really aware about anything. So, an hypnotic improvement was always necessary. And she was not able to do the Simbad. It's those strongly kinesthetic persons who are not able to see in their mind a tridimensional image. It is normal, it depends on the type of brain you have. 6.21 Auditory, visual, or kinesthetic. Usually the kinesthetic is not able to do it. He doesn't make it. The person who is totally kinesthetic doesn't make it. 6.31 So you need to think up different systems. So, since I was desperate, I tried something. That had me understanding something that I had never understood before. Before having her getting out of the hypnotic state, since I wasn't able to have the proper base, and it is good that this situation happens to me only once every 20 years. I told, to her soul component, to imagine the Simbad's room, and I have her do a Simbad while in deep trance. During which her soul component, her mind and her spirit needs to get together. And it happens. 7:08 And right at that moment she becomes just like a person who is in a deep coma. 7:16 There's no more contact with the body. And she starts to snore. And you cannot talk to her anymore. There's nothing you can do about it. I know what had happened. Soul, mind and body got together. The triad. Thump. It detached and it went out. When the triad is detached, the body is dead. 7:37 There's always this link, far away, this cord, as the Tibetans used to call it. And the triad is there, up there, she doesn't really care. This person then will tell me, after she gets out of the hypnosis, what happened under her point of view. I was up there. I didn't really want to go back in that physical body container down there. What do I care about the physical body container? It's very nice up here. You were annoying with your words. Because I was telling her, now you will go back into your physical body container. 805 I was chatting with her so much that she was like, what a drag. I am not going back there anymore. And this happens because your soul component, or your triad, within you, is the representation of who you are. 816 If you are somebody who doesn't want to live, who hasn't accepted the sufferings that life gives you daily, and she was this kind of person, so she did not want to go back into her container. 827 And she must experience the physical body container. Because that's why she is there. So, that's when I realized something technical. That person was in the same conditions as a woman in an iron lung. Just the same. Just like a vegetable. 844 A body without consciousness. It didn't matter, whatever you were doing. She did not interact with you. 853 Nothing. Zero. And that's when I asked myself a question. It was just that time when everybody was talking about euthanasia, about those people that are in that situation, like a suspended life, like that. What do you do? Do you kill them or not? The triad is attached or it is not? Because she was just like a person in a coma state. 914 If I was to leave her like that, she was going to stay in that comatose state for the rest of her life. That's when I understood something that I wouldn't have been able to understand unless I experienced something like this. When I got this, then I talked to the triad, and I told it, now you go back into your physical body container. 9:30, and it was right at that moment that the physical body container started to move again. When the triad went back in, out of hypnosis, and sent back home. And I didn't realize about another miracle which we had accomplished. Because in the meantime, the triad, these three guys, had talked amongst themselves, they found themselves together, and they reached a subconscious capability of being amazingly aware. And this woman is not being taken anymore. Because for all the information I was giving her, the body was listening to my voice. Part 15 She was listening to it, she had understood. While the person used to be definitely schizophrenic, meaning cut off, with the right hemisphere and the left one, that were not communicating at all between themselves. I forced them to stay together inside. And that's when there was an acquisition of consciousness. This woman called me a month ago and she said, I am feeling so good. They haven't come back anymore. Actually, the other night, after 4 or 5 months, the chicken came back. You know, the one with that thing. The beak. Fuck it. I struck him. He laughed. Now I am good. Now they don't come back anymore. 0:30, and I was able to achieve this result, just cause I was fucking lucky. Because it was a dangerous operation. What if the triad gets detached and it decides not to come back? That's it. I am fed up. No. You can't do that. That is, I would be responsible for this. I mean, somebody is going to stay stone dead just there. I mean. And then, how are you going to explain it to the policemen when they come to bring me to jail? You know, it's the triad. It is not my fault. 10 for that's why I tell you, get the goodies ready to bring me when I'll be in jail, cause sooner or later, and also, that's why I tell you that I will stop in May. This is what has happened, more or less. Now 117 If you have any question, I'll give you some room for questions, but I am done for now. Thank you. 122 Yes. Question, what do you mean when you say, network when you were talking about that woman? Answer, as an example, Facebook is a network? Question, yes, but. Answer, why did I say network, and why didn't I say Facebook? There must be a reason. Remember, everything I do, it is not by chance. If I said network, it's because I didn't want to say Facebook. 209 There's a lot more than that, yes. Why? Because I care about this person to remain anonymous. Question from the same person. Yes, but I thought you were referring to the soul's network. Answer. No, 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 no. Question. I mean, when? Answer. I just meant the internet. Yes, yes, yes. 231. Question. What about the people who seem dead? Where's their triad? What happens? Answer. Yes, that's also what I asked myself in that kind of situation. So, even if I used to deal with that issue airily, and I used to say, yes, we certainly need to eliminate, we need to do the euthanasia now, I am not so sure about that. 254. Because if it is a matter of suspended life, of suspended liveliness, of an alive life, a lived life, the person is not aware of himself, only because the body is not aware of itself. 309. The only things which are aware is the mind, the spirit, and the soul components. It must be one of this which gives you awareness. If you don't have any of these, you cannot be consciously aware. In other words, what is the definition, which we can create now, a very clear definition of a living being? A living being is something who has consciousness. 330. This pen, does it have consciousness? No. Then it is not a living being. A tree, does it have consciousness? Yes. Then it is a living being. 337. Maybe it has just a bit of consciousness, like a cell. But it has some. Then it's a living being. That's it. A computer, does it have consciousness? No. A computer, as seen in science fiction movies, will never become alive. Even if we were dealing while in hypnotic sessions with very complex situations, stories of people in the future, who were stuck in a machine and their brain was in there, with their consciousness, and they were giving their consciousness to the machine. Which is something tremendous and horrible. For 11, and this kind of issue was coming back. Now, what are we going to do? A person who lives in a suspended animation mode, is it completely detached from the triad, and then we can even bump it off, because it is actually dead, in the true meaning of the word. For a 26, but, if there's still a linked part, which is external and that doesn't want to go back in the physical body container? For a 33, here we have a problem that I don't know how to solve now. Question. Professor, we talked about big snakes, about the little ones. But how many are they? Where do they come from? And also, how do they show themselves? On a molecular level, the vibrations are such that they can go through walls. And so on. Answer. Well, yes, I got the question. Well, first of all, there's not that many of them. Meaning the bestiary is very small. Let's see it right away. 511. There's aliens with a body, and aliens without a body. The ones with a body are like this. There's a blonde being who is 7 feet 3 inches. The female is smaller. This is the only alien which has a female, approximately 6 feet 7 inches, orange-haired, from dark red to light orange hair, going through all the different shades, wearing a dark or a light blue overalls. 532. With a triangle mark here, 5-fingered, the skin is a little bit like sun-lamped. How do you say it? Like the ones who are obsessed with carrots, eat carrots, and after a while they become yellow like carrots. Yes, just like that. We called them the orange. I used to have a student, a girl senior, and she was anorexic, and like all the anorexic they have this kind of obsessions. 6.00, and she used to eat just carrots all day long. She had become pink. Like an orange pink, like a carrot. I used to tell her, look, you need to do something about this. Or they are going to take you for an alien. That was in 1981, 1982. 6.12. The cranium is flattened on the sides and retroverted at the top. The eye's pupils, which are very light, they are vertical, like cat's pupils, with a variable shape. 6.24. Then there's another guy who looks like a snake. Actually saying snake is wrong, because he's an amphibian. And he's probably 7 feet 10 inches, rather big. massive with a stocky tail, 638, and when he's standing still, he leans on his tail as if he was a tripod. While he walks, the tail is slightly up, just a few millimeters. He doesn't drag it on the floor, but it's just above the floor. And he's very massive. He has 5 stocky claws, and here he has something like a nail, just like a cat, the 6th cat's finger 704. His hands are webbed. He has 3 bulges, one in the middle, and 2 on the side 710, which are actually the eyelashes extension, that is, almost vertical, and this one at the top raises like a crest, when he is irritated or pissed off. There's no females, or anyway, nobody's ever noticed the difference between males and females in these races. Then there's something that looks like an insect. This is a mantis, not a grasshopper, okay? Because there's a difference in the structure. The head is probably like this, 2 eyes which are big like this, in a triangle shape, 748, a small little mouth like an insect, and he's always with his little 3-fingered hands here, something like this, in this position. Every once in a while he also holds something in his hands, and when he walks he makes a noise like a strange moving thing. 809, female? Male? Even in this case, who knows? It's hard to understand it. And then there's another being, who's also probably 9 feet 2 inches tall, very big. Massive. Imagine a very big man, stout. He either wears a white coat, or, anyway, under the white coat, he wears Nazi-like overalls. He looks like one of those Nazi people from the old movies, wearing big boots. Here he has or something that looks like it, just here. 843, the eyes are round, circular. There's no hair on his head, but little tubercles. The hands are 4-fingered, and the fingertips are like a frog's fingertips, round. And between the fingers there's also a web structure. Then there's the one that we call the hard-headed. He's little, 5 feet 3 inches tall. He looks like a little cute monk. He wears some kind of tunic, we could call it like that, and his very wrinkled skin marks him out. 913, he has 2 neck muscles here, which are very tight. The eyes are round, light-colored. The head is heart-shaped, so in the middle there's a hole. We could also somehow say he's bilobate. This little one, who is 4 feet 11 inches tall, who is always still, and has these little hands, 936, whose fingers have all the same length, like this. They are not like ours, which have different length, 'cause every finger does something different. He's the one who shots images in your head. Oftentimes the abductees tell the story about this one coming and putting his head against theirs, and he shots images inside you. Part 16. Then, there's 3 entities which don't have a body. The Lux, we call him Lux, while the ancient people used to call him Lucifer, light-bringing, the one who brings light, some kind of Satan for the ancient people. It's a demon, who wants the soul, just like the ancient demons. He's a being without a body. Since he doesn't have one, in order to plan his work, he needs to get one. And why? Because the soul component, for how it is structured, can attach only to a bodily DNA, to a body. So if he doesn't have a body, he needs a body, 'cause then he's going to attach the DNA inside, meaning he's going to attach to it the soul component. That is, he cannot get the soul component, 'cause she one attaches only to a real DNA, a solid one. So, the Lux has always been using us, the human beings, but he uses also other entities, but it is clear how the Lux gets into, penetrates. There's 2 ways he does that. Usually the abductees remember about this weird little cute kid, all shining, with darker eyes, and also his fingernails. If that's what they really are, they're a little bit darker, but it is actually not a body, it's a little moving flame, which gets closer, and closer, and closer. At night time. And then a stroke to the solar plexus. And it gets in. And you feel like you need to throw up, just cause the parasympathetic nervous system must have been exposed to a special solicitation so that the pit of the stomach makes you feel like that. And you feel within you that there's something which is not working out, some kind of load, a weight, something disgusting. 1.30, and this one gets in between the spirit and the mind component, meaning the left hemisphere, the corpus striatum. We could somehow say that he makes you believe that the thoughts that your spirit sends you are all yours. And instead, he filters them, he modifies them, and he makes you believe two basic things, which are some of his basic qualities, and that is, he's the creator of religion, and the creator of the guilt instinct, and he's still the one who created that. 158, and he makes you feel like shit. And just because of trivialities. For as long as you live. He keeps you in check in this way. And he talks from within you, with this little voice. He talks from within and he tells you things. As an example, you see. You lost a button. I told you that you were supposed to admit that I was right. I told you that you were supposed to strengthen the button. Every time you don't admit that I am right, and that you don't do what I want, then you will feel uncomfortable. Or, you see. Today you didn't lose any button. You did a good job in reviewing it, as I told you to do yesterday. All the times that you do what I say, you will get on in life. You cannot do anything without me. 241 Even for just a button, if you don't pay attention to it, you feel like shit. In any case, without him, 'cause he creates a needing rapport. This one doesn't have a body. What actually happens is that he gets the soul's energy, and brings it to his place, where there's a very huge lux, a single big lux. Just a like bucket that gets water from a well, and it throws it in there. Gets us from the well, and throws it in there. It's just one creature, which parts itself in many different creatures, and sub-creatures. 316 Then there's the one that we have named the six-fingered blonde, and the ufologists, who haven't really understood what it is, they call him the Northerner Nordic. The truth of the matter is that this is also a being which is tall around 8 feet 10 inches, 7 feet 10 inches, 8 feet 2 inches, and they are all the same. If you see 10 of them, next to each other, they are all the same. They are six-fingered, with same length fingers, just a little hair like a Barbie, that's what a girl told me once. And I'll remember this for as long as I live. And he has a light white eye. And they have this big medallion, with this triangles on it. In fact, the body is fake, like plastic. And the puppeteer is inside. On the inside there's a being which doesn't have a body. And this one comes from another dimension. And in order to be able to work in this dimension he had to create a body, which is built by a machine. And then there's the chicken. The one that we called the chicken. For 16 the chicken is some kind of being who is linked to our history. And to the ancient Egyptians' history, the chicken. We started to see this character, which is the last one that we found out about, and it's also the meanest. The smartest. The most ancient. The one that's always been here, who was the first one to come here, somehow. And in order to recreate the chicken's identity, it took us so long. 'Cause it is something so weird that you are not even able to draw it afterwards, when you get out of the hypnotic state, and you remember exactly how you saw it. Then, after you draw it the first time, you remember about it even without being under hypnosis, when he comes. 'Cause he doesn't fool you anymore. So your conscience is so high that you can see him, by sight, on your own. He is some kind of 13 feet 2 inches feet tall contraption which doesn't touch the ground, but he levitates, and his shoulder blades are very accentuated, and somebody, through history, mistaken them for the angel's wings. Imagine how you can fool yourself, all by yourself. And he has these fingers, which are just chicken's fingers. It's a chicken. And he has, up here, a long beak, that transforms itself into a lappet, only in the males. It seems that the females don't have this, 539, and this one also has the genders. Here, in the middle of his cranium, there's something which we haven't understood what it is. Some kind of bright little device. Imagine some kind of a third eye. How should I know? On the back he has these little feathers, which move in the wind, and they have a changeable shape, and they can open and close, because if you go like OH to the chicken, he pulls them out in the back, who knows? What are they? Something with a changeable shape, and when they are open they look like this. Eye in the middle. Little beard. That's right. And we called him Horace. 624. And Horace is a chicken, a bird, who is in a precise time-space dimension. He's behind the star called Alnitak, and here we have a story to tell. What is Alnitak? It's one of the main stars in the Orion's belt. Alnitak in Arab means band belt. And he is a living being. But within himself there's something else, which is the puppeteer. Once again, it's a being without a body, which has created a symbiosis with this guy who has a body, so that both of them can together find the power to suck our soul. One because he has the technology. And the other one because he has a body. And so, think about this. There's 3 different kinds of symbiotic reports. The Lux, who uses a body like the snake's body, and they made arrangements in order to be able to perform certain actions. The 6-fingered blonde, who has a fake body, and behind the scenes there's the real puppeteer, who doesn't have a body. This one has a different symbiosis, I mean this other guy, without a body. And then, this time, a real container, which is not made of plastic. The all 3 possibilities. An amazing mutual symbiosis. You could definitely create a wonderful science fiction movie about this. No question about it. And how that position came about. Why did I talk about the star called Alnitak? 802 Because one day, during an hypnotic session, cause actually we didn't really care about where they come from. Because the most important thing is that they come and that they kick our asses. So, we don't really care about where they come from. We don't really care about it. But it could have been an important oddness. 818 So, that day, the person under hypnosis, he's regressing. But he's regressing in a wrong way. And he regress up to the ancient Egyptians' time. And he starts to talk in Arab. And he talks in Arab for 2 hours. But, listening to the Arab, we are able to understand some things, especially about some specific questions, like who are you? And so on. In plain words, he says 3 or 4 unmistakable things. Bear in mind that he was actually a she, who works as a teacher. Now she's unemployed, but I don't think she has a very great cultural level, except for what she had acquired during her evolution. I mean, she went to a regular school, she didn't attend great schools. She's the daughter of a physician from Naples. Her sister's is an abductee. Her sister's daughter is an abductee. Her mom is an abductee. And so on. 926 All the female side in that family is in a messy situation. But now we solved her issue. Now nobody comes any longer, there's nothing anymore, she feels great, she doesn't care about anybody and anything. This is just to say there's many cases in which we get to the point and we get some results. Under hypnosis this woman talks and she says she is. Now I can't remember the name. But it's a male Arab name. She was speaking in Arab, remember, she says also a few words in Italian, but she's speaking mostly in Arab. And when she's asked the question, part 17, why did she regress to that? She did because we were talking about the aliens, we were talking about the well-known chicken alien, and her soul component was starting to recognize him. So there it starts this sequence of information about the alternative life during the ancient Egypt time, when this guy says, Horus Ra, Horus Ra. And one thinks, okay, probably she saw it on TV. Horus Ra. Who is your master? My master is Horus Ra. Where does he come from? From Alnitak. 037 Alnitak? What the hell did I know about Alnitak? Then I checked it on Wikipedia, and I saw that it is one of the main stars in Orion, in the central belt Alnitak. And she adds, Akut Khufu, Akut Khufu? And what is that? I tried to understand, and I found out that Khufu it's the name of the Egyptian pyramid which corresponds to, according to Yuval to Elnatak. Khufu. Where Khufu means Peter. Or rather, it means stone. And actually the Egyptians wrongly said that this was the pharaoh Khufu's pyramid. Cheops. Also known as Khufu. By the way, here we have the story of the Hebrew people, which is a fake story, because there's no such thing as the Hebrew people, because Peter, with the story, I will build on this stone this dummy church, it is merely the transliteration of the Khufu pharaoh, also known as Peter, who, being a poor wretch, he only restored the pyramid, he did not build it. But she adds, while we were asking Akut Khufu, that's what we call, nowadays, Akut Khufu, meaning the Akkadian stone. Which is the name that the Akkadians used to give to that pyramid before the Egyptians. And he pronounces it Akut, as they want us to believe nowadays. And I trust way more his pronunciation, since he doesn't know, poor guy, Hebraic, he doesn't know Arab, he doesn't know anything about Orion, or Elnatak, and Orion R.A. Horus R.A. Horus R.A. is. Because she says also Orion Akut Khu. So she also gives you a piece of information. Horus R.A. Who is that? Horus R.A. is my master. Is the one coming from Elnatak. And how does he look like? Well, he is 13 feet 2 inches tall. He has a beak. Something here in the middle. He looks like a chicken, and what does he do? Well, I bring people to him. Yes, and they put them in containers and they suck energy out of them. 3:17 Really? They suck energy out of them? Yes. And how many are they? The Horus R.A.? A lot. And where do they come from? They come from Orion. Elnatak. Akut Khufu. And what about this energy? Are they the only ones who get it? No. And who are the other ones? Well, the snakes too, she says, and then, after the snakes? Who gets it? No, that's it. There's no more left. And that leads you to understand how, going back and reading the history, and trying to understand as much as possible in the pharaoh's history, the pharaoh's genealogy, that the March first pharaohs, of the pre-pharaoh descent, meaning the very first ones, there was one who was called Horus Ra. These are 3 important pharaohs, but Horus Ra, just like the other 2, and he's the second known pharaoh, and he is a god. That means they are not regular pharaohs, terrestrial pharaohs, he's the god who became pharaoh. And the god. He is the pharaoh. He came from the outside. And he is the one who built the pyramid. It was not the Egyptians who built the pyramid. It was this damn Horus Ra, who has a chicken face. So, it is evident, clearly evident, that we still have the same mythology. Look what happens in Babylon, Enki, and Enlil, the 2 gods, one is the snake, and the other one is the eagle. 4.57 You go in Egypt, and you find Seth, the animal who looks like a crocodile, or rather the god come 5:19 who has features of a crocodile, and the hawk. Horus and the description of Horus. The pharaohs then tried to look like the real god, wearing a fake little beard, and wearing this weird headgear, and creating this hole in his head, so that it looked like he had this third eye, or something, who knows what. Something that wasn't there. Then you go in Latin America, and you find Quetzalcoatl, and his brother, the feathered snake, and the condor. Always the same kind of mythology. Instead, these 2 guys are the aliens that now we call the big snake, and the chicken. 605 Cause now we have used names which are more McDonald's-like names. Cause in the 21st century we are more McDonald's-like, so, let's review this. Instead of saying, you are the god, no, let's say instead, you are the chicken, you see? That's it. There's a different relationship between these things. And if you go and see the little statues, for the Quetzalcoatl's brothers, they are. I found one which totally looks identically. I also published it, identical to the pharaoh Tutankhamun. You put one next to the other, and they have this kind of pen in here, with all the little stripes. Here the hole, with the snake coming out of it, 647, and the fake little beard. Just the same. Then there's the discovery in recent years, and nobody talks about it, but you can find it on the internet. They found in Australia a cavern, which is a few thousands years old, where there's the story of a pharaoh, written with hieroglyphics. I don't remember which pharaoh it is. I think Amenhotep III. Who went down there to do something with his little boat. 719 in Australia? The pharaoh? And there's all the little hieroglyphics, very well done. Nobody talks about it, but yes, the pharaohs went all the way to Australia. It could be even true, but there's something that doesn't make sense in history, if this was true. 734 So much so, during a hypnosis, and I still remember it, and it's something I already said, when we connect the person under hypnosis to his alien active memory, the five-fingered blonde, that is that part of alien which is within you, and doesn't have a body, and sucks your energy, while he waits that a new body gets to be created for him. Alien active memory. At one point I asked that person something that doesn't have anything to do with the main subject, just to deviate his focus, and that's something I do in order to have answers which are more spontaneous. Unexpectedly, I don't even remember what we were talking about. Who built the pyramids? The answer, well, I don't know. When we got here 12,000 ago, they were already there. I was asking about the Great Pyramid. What do you mean it was already there? It's obvious that it was already there. Because, if we take into consideration the work of Zakaria Sitchin, who was just reporting data, he talks about some 64,000 tablets. And he talks about one tablet where there's the God's Mountain. And the God's Mountain was the pyramid, which is Giza's. Now, it was the God's Mountain. The Babylonians already described it 12,000 years earlier. 855 We now get into the historical issue about the pyramid needing to be 3,400 years old, and how are we going to deal with it? This is, in some way, the same story for the Chichen Itza pyramid. Poor thing. In the South America, we have this big pyramids which have big steps. These pyramids, that they said, are 34 or 3600s yo, and there's some issues with this. One side of the pyramid is under a lava flow, from a volcano which is 300 kilometers away, but the very last time that the volcano erupted was 12,000 years ago. 925 So, if the lava covered that part of pyramid, it means that the pyramid was already there. Well, go and have them understand this. Isn't it trivial? So what does this mean? It means that, I don't know now about the Sphinx, because this is really a very hard issue. We only have data about its erosion, caused by winds and water, a very controversial subject. But how can I say this? In my experience, when I deal with a person who talks under hypnosis, and says something, that something is true. Part 18 Like, when that guy told me that, in order to tie the soul to the DNA, you need something called TT. And then I found out that is the terminal transferase. And this guy is just a factory worker who makes plastic pots. I mean, TT. I didn't even know it. And I teach organic chemistry, and I teach up to the Saccharos, when I teach in the biological sciences faculty. 028 Then, some other teacher takes care of the DNA part of the course. I teach organic chemistry, but I am not a biochemist. I really didn't know what the hell the TT was. But it exists. It's the terminal transferase. It is something so technical, and I didn't even know it existed. But, he told me during the hypnotic session, then I went to check it, and it does exist. So, I have a vague suspicion that the poor official Egyptologist made a blunder. Or maybe he still wants to keep on making a blunder. 103 This is something difficult, but we have noticed this when we used to try to throw out the lux during an hypnosis, and this also happens at times during the Simbad. The person starts to have an headache, or suffers from palpitations, or his legs hurts. In other words, we found out about all the fake pains, which the lux creates, through acting on the cerebral cortex. But they are fake. Their only purpose is to sidetrack the person, because if he was to continue, with all the systems that we know, he would actually eliminate the lux. 203 But, once the trick is revealed, it's over. It is clear that these are chemicals which act on the chemical receptors. Excuse me, Corrado, but it's 7 p.m. But the lux, we can say, chemically pilots the person to go in a certain direction. It can create fever. And it brings the person to do or not do a certain thing. Yes, yes. Yes, yes. It is possible. No, this is possible, and this is actually a pretty simple issue. There's something called psychosomatics. The psyche and the body are connected. So anything that acts on the psyche, then the body clearly shows the consequences of it. Alas, yes. But, you just need to realize that the first thing that your willpower needs to do is to distinguish your own true voice from the lux's little voice, which is within you. Once you are aware and you know this, that guy just talks, and you just let him talk, because in the end you do what you want to do. 311 Yes, but what if you don't hear the little voice? And one think he's just listening to his own voice, then you are shafted, you swindled it. Because the soul component must make herself heard. She must come out. That's always the same story. You can never free somebody who doesn't want to be freed. 324 You can never free somebody who is not conscious enough so he is able to do it. The last question. Yes, please. I wanted to ask, how do they choose their victims? I mean, do they have peculiar features? No, I mean, yes, of course. There's a particular characteristic. Very peculiar. We think that there are sequences for the purine and pyrimidine bases in the DNA. That means a familiar sequence. That's why is the mother, the daughter, the niece, the grandmother, as an example. They all get to be taken, it's only 'cause their DNA is a good one. A DNA that allows the soul to fit in there. Not all of the DNAs are compatible with the soul component. For a 03 then what happens? What does this mean? It means that not all of the human beings have a soul. Back there. The very last question. Yes. Please. I wanted to ask about the Simbad. For a kinesthetic person, first, how do you avoid the initial difficulties when starting the Simbad, and then? Yes. Of course. For a 50 that's why it took 105 emails to free that person. Because, every now and then, there were new issues which were coming up, and I needed to tell her, look, you deal with this in this way, then you have to do this, and so on. So you have to follow up with the person. So, there's a Simbad created just for kinesthetic people. And it is this, very briefly explained. It has been published on the experimental part. You can find it in the article called Simulazioni Mentali, which you can find on the internet. You can read it all, and you find that experimental part at the end, for kinesthetic people. 517 Basically you are in a room, and in this room, you can't see anything. There's almost no light at all. But you are sitting down. You know there's your armchair. You know that's warm or cold. You can smell the scent from the armchair's fabric. 531 And you have in your mouth that taste. You know, the taste of the modern wood they use to make these new kind of desks. That is in front of you just like when you are in one of these factories where they make these desks, and you can feel the smell. 544 And you have 3 telephone receivers in front of you, but you barely see them, 'cause it's dark. But you know that there's 3 telephones. And one is connected to your mind, one to your soul, and the other one to your spirit. And they have a different color. And they are made with different materials. And when you pick them up, you can feel, as an example, that one is made of fabric, one of wood, and the other one of glass. 604, because you can choose the material, and when you put your ear on the receiver, you can feel that one is warm, or that another one makes a noise like styrene foam, and so on. And in this way you brought everything to a kinesthesical vision. 618, very little visual, and then a bit auditive, 'cause you cannot see who you are talking to, but you can hear his voice in the receiver. At this point, if you are actually a kinesthetic auditory person, thud. The Simbad starts, and then what happens? It happens that you find out that your phone is actually a video phone, so if you want you press a button, and you can also see what is over there. And through this Simbad you try to avoid the issue concerning the room. 645, how to proceed, then? You do that, and if you have any issue you tell me, I got stuck here for this reason and I intervene, and I tell you, then, you do it in a different way as an example. A trick. The final trick. Then we'll all go home. Final trick. You cannot speak with your soul component 'cause there's noise in the Simbad room. 708, you get your soul component, and you go inside the mirror. There's a mirror, which is meant to see the persons that comes in the room, and that is archetypically linked to the reality of the soul's presence and of the conscience. Anything that does not have a reflection in the mirror, or that has a different reflection from what they actually are, these things are not what they say they are. So, what do? You get your soul component, and you go inside the mirror, you just do like Alice in Wonderland. 732, it's only you. And only your soul who can go inside the mirror, and you can talk as much as you want while on the other side. Nobody can disturb you. Then, once you take your own decisions, you come back on this side, and you make a mess. The end. For further information in English, please see